Don't forget to like and subscribe.
It's Jim Keller, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
I'm still gonna kick out on that video. You have seen it like 20 times.
We'll get to episode 50, and you'll still be.
Yeah, guarantee.
Well, it's time for another Tech Poutine. It's time for another journey through the Valley of Silicon. My week's been kind of. It was weird. It was quiet for the first couple of days. And then yesterday at 5 p.m., everybody decided time for a meeting. And the thing is, I'm actually meant to be on vacation this week. We had 2 weeks in Japan planned. Unfortunately, I had to cancel it because one of my cats suddenly went deaf, and we just wanted to make sure that she was okay, and we didn't want anything. If anything had happened to her while we were away, we didn't want to, hear it a few thousand miles away, so we stayed at home. But next week, while I'm trying not to take meetings, just in case we want to do a day trip somewhere. So, but yeah, turns out Thursday 5 p.m. everybody wants a meeting. So, yeah, I got off a meeting 15 minutes ago. I don't have another one tonight. Let's put it.
I had a meeting an hour ago, so.
Yeah, I think I went as late as 11 p.m. last night. So yeah, the flights to Japan, we didn't get a refund, but I was able to push them. I pushed them to the furthest I was able to, which is 12 months from booking. Unfortunately, the week I've now booked it for.
Oh, it's Computex.
No, because it's not 12 months from the time that you're meant to travel. It's 12 months from the time you booked.
From booking, okay.
And that will be the same week as. Let me just bring it up here once Google plays ball. So I'll lithography conference, one that I should have gone to this year. But I didn't go to this year because there was a conflict. But yeah, looks like I won't be able to go to it next year. Oh well, I'll be in Japan instead. Yeah, but so I'm trying to take some. So actually, we've already started planning that trip, right? We've decided based on everybody I've spoken to about going to Japan, because for weebs in the West, going to Japan is the holy grail, right? We were going to spend a few days in Tokyo, a couple in Mount Fuji. I was going to go to a conference in Kyoto, and then maybe spend a few days further down the coast, in Hiroshima. Talking to a lot of people, it turns out you need more time than that. However many days you think you're going to spend in Tokyo, you need more. However many days you think you're going to spend in Kyoto and Osaka, you need more. So I think what we're planning to do is when we get to Japan, is suddenly go to Okinawa.
Interesting.
So in essence, we're going to do 2 trips to Japan. And the first one is going to be, let's see the stuff that people don't normally see. And then the second trip is, let's do the stuff people normally see. Yeah.
Okay.
So Okinawa, for those who don't know, it's like a 3-hour flight south of Tokyo.
Yes.
It's where US bases were stationed during Second World War and the Cold War.
Still are bases.
But there's over 1.1 million Japanese people that live there. And during the time we're going, it's cherry blossom season there.
Ooh.
So it won't be cherry blossom season in the mainland of Japan, but it will be in Okinawa because it's 3 hours south.
I may be going to that conference in Kyoto. No, it's not in Kyoto.
No, because it's next week.
I can't remember where supercomputing.
Japan.
No, supercomputing Asia. I think that's Osaka this next year.
What month is that?
January. Like late January.
Are you getting a sponsor to send you there?
No, I've just always wanted to go to Japan.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, as apparently Okinawa just isn't that touristy. So yeah, it's a bit more traditional. Apparently there are massive beaches that are rarely attended and they're really clean. So spend a few days there, then fly back to the mainland and spend a few days somewhere else.
I think let me edit my comment. If a sponsor does want to fly me out to Japan, I would be happy to go.
It's 3rd to the 4th in Tokyo. No, sorry, that's this year. Let me search for. I need to keep reminding myself that next year is 2026. What the hell? Yeah, okay. Osaka Convention Center, January 26th to 29th. Actually, APC Asia. I'm going to put that in my calendar just in case. Yeah, not to annoy the wife by actually going to Japan before we go to Japan, like a month before we go to Japan. Flights are super expensive.
Although actually for me, it's not too bad because I could just fly straight out of LAX.
No, I can fly straight out of Heathrow. It's direct. It's a 15-hour flight. But yeah. But yeah, and then we've got a bunch of stuff coming up actually next week that I wasn't planning to go to anyway. We'll get into it as part of the show, but George is going to be at Advancing AI, the AMD's event. There's also, like I mentioned, VLSI in Tokyo. That's next week. International Supercomputing in Hamburg is next week. I may actually do a day trip there. So if anybody wants to meet up in Hamburg, let me know. I'm still not decided if I want to go yet, but I'll be flying in early morning and flying out late in the evening. Also, next week is GTC Paris.
All the events are next week.
Next week is WWDC.
Apple.
Yep, Apple Developer Conference. Next week is London Tech Week. The keynote is with Jensen Huang.
So he's going to be going from London to Paris and/or vis-a-vis.
Yep. So yeah, Monday, I think at like 9:10, he's got the keynote at London Tech Week. It's technically a conversation with a politician, as in they'll be going back and forth about the policy of AI and what have you. But I have I've applied for a press pass. I don't know if I'll go. We'll see. It depends what's gonna happen. But yeah, six events next week. And that's going to be. I actually should add London Tech Week to my calendar because I didn't yet. June 9th to 11th. And luckily, that's less than 5 miles from my house.
That's nice.
So it's going to be very easy for me to get to. I was there. I was at that location, I think, a couple of months ago for an IBM. Was it IBM? No. London there was a Economist Quantum Conference. That was exciting, actually. I'm not sure if I mentioned on Poutine before. I saw the world's first post-quantum crypto ASIC.
I think you did tell me that.
I think I told you. I'm not sure if I mentioned it on the
maybe
on the
not.
stream. But we're talking about crypto ASICs again. But this one to protect against quantum computing, and it was built in GlobalFoundries 40. The company wants to sell IP, but they did a test chip in using a multi-project wafer system with GlobalFoundries first, just to show it would work. Yes, you can do it in software. Yes, you could do it on an FPGA. ASIC's going to be the least power hungry, though. They said that it's a company called PQ Shield. I might do a video on this because it was interesting at the time. They said it's actually quite good for side channel.
Interesting.
If you want to do side channel exploration of post quantum crypto, it's good to deal with that. So fun times. I mean, this is still technically pre-show, but we've got a good set of interesting stuff on the actual show. Big one, if you may not have guessed from the thumbnail, is Hot Chips is coming. Favorite conference of the year?
Oh, that's in terms. Oh God, it's a fight between Hot Chips and supercomputing.
It hits the right spots.
I like it that it's less crowded, and that you can get a bit more personal, so to speak.
Yeah. A proper tech event conference show where you have a hall filled with companies. You may think, oh, that sounds incredibly corporate. But when you're pacing up and down trying to find some weird stuff, you don't get that at Hot Chips. And it is quite fun, just randomly seeing a company going, oh, what the hell is that? Oh, it's biological computing. There's another video I haven't done yet. Oh, there's the world's densest power supply in terms of watt per cubic centimeter. There's the bendiest wafer.
Hot Chips is a different feel to like even supercomputing.
I think I've got it. A trade show, a CES, a Computex, a supercomputing has the show floor, which is great. But you can never guarantee high-profile announcements.
No.
Chips always has high-profile announcements.
Yeah, there's always something of interest from one of the major vendors.
Yeah. It's never mid-cycle for anyone at Hot Chips.
No.
Referring to last episode. So, yeah, we'll go through that first because George and I have lots of interesting points to talk about through all the talks here, and as long as that doesn't take 2 hours by itself,
it may very well.
It may very well. We do also want to talk about the fact that AMD seems to be acquiring everybody left, right, and center. We've got some news from there. The embargo has lifted on Qualcomm announcing their tech summit, so we might cover that. We also saw.
I still haven't gotten that email, Qualcomm.
Analysts going to do analyst things. Then we also saw some 9060 XT reviews come out this week. We can go through those, and some Switch stuffs. We've got the Switch, as in a Broadcom Switch, and we've got the Switch 2, as in the Nintendo Switch 2. So Nintendo makes Switches. Don't forget that. So does Broadcom. Just one Switch is not like the other. It's apples and oranges, but Switch and Switches. So yeah, let's start this thing, and I'll do an official intro. So, actually, let me put this on my third monitor, so it actually looks half decent. The contrast on this is weird. Great. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tech Poutine, the weekly-ish podcast here from All and More, where we usually talk about processors, silicon, and how we teach special rocks to think in very special ways. We are called the Tech Poutine because my name is Ian, and I run a channel called Tech Potato. My co-host today is, as always, George from Chips and Cheese. If we had a guest, they would be the gravy, thus making a lovely Tech Poutine. Also, if we had a sponsor, this is where we might put it. If you do wish to sponsor the show, do let us know. We do accept and read super chats made by our listeners and watchers on the air, but only if they don't demonetize the channel. The show usually lasts a good couple of hours, sometimes more, but stick around and we'll probably get to your Q&A. But today's first Q is to George. How you doing?
Good. Actually having some cheese curds off to the side if you're wondering what I'm snacking on.
I'll stick with the green tea. And then after this comes dinner.
Yeah, no, it's cheese curds and coffee for me.
Everybody put in the chat exactly what you guys are chowing down on. But I do have another question for you, George, and that's: are you sufficiently mentally satisfied? I'm not
What do you
asking if
mean?
you have trauma. Do you have no? That's
I mean,
something
the
else.
answer to that question is yes, but
Because we need to talk about this.
yes.
If I zoom in sufficiently, we have hot chips. Hot chips.
It's nice and spicy.
Would you like to explain to everybody what hot chips is for those who
Hot
don't know?
Chips is the yearly conference where it's one of the probably the biggest or the most covered of the technical conferences of the year. And that's largely because this is not like you were saying in the pre-show, Ian, this is not a like mid-level mid-gen refresh time for anyone. This is when products are announced, and almost every single year we get something new from one of the big vendors. We get, and usually more than just a single vendor is announcing new stuff and new products. And the really nice thing about it is you get headliners like Lisa Su, and you get to go up and ask questions to them, and you get to go, hey, what do you think of X, Y, and Z? Or in your presentation, you talked about alpha, beta, gamma. Explain more. And you get to also meet people that you either haven't met in a long time or haven't seen in a long time, only know on the internet. I noticed that the person behind you is John Masters, who I still yet to meet in person. Or
he needs to get a talk at Hot Chips and to present the chip he's been working on.
that would be interesting. I mean, Google is giving a presentation. It's a quite interesting one. We'll get to it, but yeah. Also, you get to have some very deep technical discussions at Hot Chips because oftentimes the architects are there. I know the first time I met Mahesh Saramani was at Hot Chips. I think Hot Chips 23.
He's AMD. Which AMD? He's the AMD architect
AMD
for
SoC. So he does all of the SoC integration stuff.
Hot Chips is different because when you go to a technical conference, it's usually 50% academic, if not more so. This one is 95% commercial. So it's the companies, it's the engineers that work at the companies, increasingly so vendors. Sorry, no, not vendors, investors. Investors are coming to these events because they want to find out what the latest AI chips are going to be like. So the conference happens over 3 days. You have a day 0 of tutorials. You have 2 days of talks. There's 13 or 14 talks every day. So they are pretty long days. They start early, they finish late. They are very dense. Everybody except the keynotes gets half an hour. That includes time for Q&A. So what you'll see is most people present for 25, and then you get 5 for Q&A. Then you have one keynote every day. That's an hour. That also usually has some longer time for Q&A. I think a few years back, we had 2 keynotes on one day, but one was by the government, and that was very widely panned because it didn't say much about policy, but it didn't say much about technology either. But the idea is that the keynotes there are to talk about something major in the industry, some major trends, some approach. In this case, it was Lisa and AMD's approach to AI. We've had TSMC. Even John Masters has presented in a keynote before. He was part of the Spectre meltdown coverage that they had that year. So it's it's a ton. This is a place where you see a ton of Apple engineers, even though Apple never presents. Apple present, but Broadcom, Marvell, all the chip companies, all the product companies, everybody dealing with chip design. I expect we'll see some of the cloud providers there, some of the neo clouds, checking out. It also depends on the quality of the talks, who you get. I believe last year it was about 1,700 people plus a few hundred online. That, as in, there is a online version that they offer so you can tune in. You can also ask questions through the Slack channel as well if you're remote.
Slack channel is always good, and oftentimes you will get questions answered there.
Yep. Before or
after
after
the Q&A. Yep.
Yeah. So that's and I sometimes get the impression that they don't want the conference to grow, because this is the one conference of the year that they can truly say it's not pay to play. If you go to the Chiplet Summit or the AI Infra Summit, or even supercomputing and such, if you are a major sponsor of the event, you're guaranteed some time on stage. At this event, it's every talk is given on merit, and so everybody has to essentially apply to talk regardless of what sponsor level you're at. And the way the system works, as far as I understand it, is that the committee, and the committee's been doing this for goodness knows how many years, three piles: yes, maybe, and no. And out of all the submissions, I think about 6 to 10 papers get put in yes. They've got 26 spots to fill, right?
Yep.
Then between the rest, it's either maybe, as in we need to do more deeper dive into what this is meant to be, and no, clearly marketing, right? Because the committee want the talks to all be about the technical detail of the product or solving something new, not about this is an opportunity for the industry to market this, market that, market whatever. And also it has to be about hardware, right? As in, I was actually having this discussion today. I don't think I've seen an embedded video in any of these presentations because they want to hand out slides. I've never seen a demo done on stage before, I don't think.
Tesla actually did a demo of sorts with their networking last year.
Okay. And that was something they remoted into the lab to do.
No. They literally brought one of the chips onto the stage and had all the networking on stage.
And it ran.
And
it ran.
No, it wasn't running, but you could see it. Which
No. People can bring in demo chips or demonstrations.
No, but it was a full thing.
Yeah.
I wish I had.
But what I'm saying, it wasn't running.
No, I don't think it was.
No.
Running.
Yeah. So, it's so it's a chance to talk about the deep silicon architecture, and we've seen many companies who might not ever talk about their architecture bring it to Hot Chips because it's one of the most highest respected conferences. It is held in Stanford at the end of August. I believe this year's dates are 25th and 26th of August.
So it's the 24th, 25th, and 26th because you have tutorials on the first day.
Yes, and we have some sponsors. Normally we see Intel in this Rhodium spot, but as George noted, they were here last week. They've suddenly disappeared. Oh, I thought you said they were.
No. For 2023, they were Rhodium. 2024, they were Platinum. This year, they're now Gold.
Huh.
Qualcomm was the Rhodium
last year
sponsor last year. However, that wasn't announced until I think
that was quite late.
2 before.
Yeah. What Rhodium does above the others is it means you can display signage at lunch. But people who attend get lunch. Actually, let's talk about pricing while we're here. Does it have the pricing lists? Registration. No.
I think you have to hit register now.
Oh, yeah. It's one of these things. So it is cheap if you're an IEEE member. They do have student pricing. If you're a student in a developing country, what's the definition of... Don't have... I expect you to be honest when it says student developing country. Oh, it's also online only for that special $5. I think it's because they have to charge something. If you want in person, obviously it's a bit more expensive.
A bit.
Yeah, and if you want the tutorials, you have to sign up for the conference as well. So this section here is just for the Monday, Tuesday. This is the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I will say, however, if you are a student that's local and you do want access, they do accept student volunteers. And student volunteers either get free or reduced rate. You have to give up some of your time. You may be manning like the entry booth or whatever, but you still get access and you still get networking opportunities. I know 1 or 2 people who interacted with the channel last year were they flew themselves there. They weren't in state, but they didn't pay anything to the conference because they were part of the
Student contingent. Yeah.
They were part of the unpaid volunteers, and so yeah, they do that. And if you can't make it this year, pitch to your research supervisor that you want to come next. If anything, for the networking. Even if you're not in chip design, if you're in physical design, if you're in EDA, come. It's very good. It's very good. So let's get into the advanced program now. So sponsors. Interesting that Rebellions is a platinum.
Yeah.
So Rebellions don't have a presentation, but they are one of the big Korean AI players, AI startups. Marvell.
I think they're now technically backed by SK.
All the Korean AI startups are backed in some form by either Samsung, SK, or SK Hynix or SK Telecom.
SK Telecom. But I think originally they actually weren't supported by anyone. But they merged with one of the other Korean startups that was backed by SK Telecom.
Yeah. And then we have Gold. I think Teradyne's a regular sponsor. Murata's new.
I think they were silver last year.
Intel being gold, as we discussed earlier, is a bit low. Cool.
Yep.
That might just be because the patent has run out from Acertech.
Nope. Coolit's been a sponsor for a while, if I remember correctly.
And then in silver, I don't think I've seen Open Edges before. MEMS, no. I think I've seen before. Flow is a really new company. Flow Computing.
They had a sponsor.
For some reason, they appeared on my feed recently because they just got their trademarks on their name. And we just got an email about the Untether topic later.
Oh.
It's I'm just going to share this tab just quickly. Untether Corp has entered into a transaction. As a result, Untether will no longer be supplying their products, and today marks the end of Untether's AI journey. So it's not an acquisition, it's an acqui-hire. We'll get into it, but this email has dropped, so it's now official. But we'll get into that. There's no email. Yes. Yeah. So let's. Sorry, hot chips. We keep delaying. Let's get into the program. Elian's been there for years. Alloy and Ferric and Novelius have been there for years. Yeah. So even though we're like 3 months out or just under 3 months out from the conference, we don't have the tutorials right now. The day 0. I've been told, I think one of them is on AI kernel development and another one might be on power delivery networks.
I mean, they're right there. I mean,
oh yeah, it does say.
Tutorial 1, data racks, So that's going to be the first half of the day. It's probably going to be on power, but also cooling, as well as physical design of how do you support these very heavy racks, right?
Yeah.
And then second half of the day is going to be kernel programming.
Yeah. We don't have who's presenting what or what the titles are. But then we get into day one conference. We have they don't have timings here yet, but you can imagine this is probably 8 a.m. or 8:30. General welcome, co-chairs welcome.
They misspelled
then we
program. That's funny.
Program. Yeah. And then we get into the first section for CPUs. Our good friend Gabriel from Qualcomm is the chair of this section, so this is his domain. He'll be the MC for the session. But this first one, George wants to speak about this.
Yeah. So title of the first presentation at Hot Chips is Cuzco, a high-performance RISC-V RVA23 compatible CPU IP from Condor Computing. Now, you guys probably haven't heard of Condor, but what Condor is essentially the future development division of Andes, which is one of the big RISC-V IP suppliers. This is interesting because this will actually be their second generation RVA 23 compatible core. Their first generation is notionally the AX66, although that's still, quote, preliminary. So that might be what this is. Hopefully not, but this could be that.
So Andy's most powerful core right now is the AX65. That's what they've called it.
Yes.
However, it's not a high performance core. It's still RISC-V in what most people consider RISC-V to be.
Yes.
So and the way I pitch Condor Computing is they're like the Skunk Works division. They're like the Black division of Andes. If you haven't heard of Andes before, go check them out because they are one of the leading RISC-V IP vendors. They build IP, not chips. But their IP is in this.
The thing that I delivered to you?
Yeah. Do you want to explain what this is?
So that is something that Ian shouldn't have. But what that is Meta's MTIA V2 card. Now, ironically enough, Meta actually gave a talk on this very card last year at Hot Chips.
This is their inference accelerator, RISC-V based. That's what IA in MTIA stands for. Inference accelerator. So Andes has a massive customer in Facebook, in Meta, for their cores, for high performance cores. So Condor Computing with this new core, which I think is going to be called AX67, is essentially saying we're gonna also breach into the high performance RISC-V market.
Right now, there's one company that's notionally serving that market that you can purchase a board for, but
it's not their high performance core yet.
But nobody's adopted it.
So Tens Torrent is making a high performance RISC-V core. Ventana Micro is making a high performance RISC-V core, and supposedly Revos is making a high performance RISC-V core as well.
I was talking about Sci-Fi.
I'm talking about high performance. I'm talking about server class.
Yes. Notionally, their P870 is server class, but my point here is it's good to see more RISC-V.
It's
RISC-V. I always want to say 5, but
it's RISC-V.
Is it?
Yes. One of the things that happened during Computex a couple of weeks ago was the RISC-V Summit, Taiwan.
Oh.
And I managed to get in. I didn't
Oh.
apply, but I managed to get in. And yeah, so I actually spoke to the Andes people at TSMC's EU Tech Symposium
Mm.
a couple weeks ago. That's where I found out about AX65 and AX67. They said one of the key drivers to even starting to build a high performance RISC-V core was RVA23.
Yes.
Customers are now demanding it as a baseline, just like they did with SBSA with ARM. So RVA23, we covered it in previous episodes, but it's just essentially a standardized baseline of RISC-V instructions and support. You can still build custom on top of that, but it's a defined baseline. And it's just taken them so long to get it approved. I think RVA23 came out end of last year, November-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And so now companies can talk about all their RVA23 compatible chips. So yeah, we're expecting core architecture diagrams.
Yes, that will always be fun.
So yeah, we want to know how big your reorder buffers are, where your execution ports are, how big your
I
reservation
like big
stations
buffers, and I
are.
cannot lie.
Yeah, I like multi-stage buffers, and I cannot lie.
Mm.
Give them to me stacked. I'm pretty sure that's a t-shirt design. We'll get on it.
Uh-huh. Hey, Dom, get on that. So, moving on to the next presentation. I don't quite know how to say the company name. I'm just going to say the letters. Oh, PEZY. Okay.
PEZY.
So, it's from PEZY Computing. It's a PEZY SC4, the 4th generation MIMD Many-core processor with high energy efficiency and flexibility for HPC and AI applications. Now, PEZY is a Japanese company that specializes mostly in the HPC space. Now, some of you will also know that the PEZY president was
former president,
excuse me, was indicted and convicted of fraud. And many people thought that PEZY at that point would effectively cease to exist. However,
that's what I thought.
That's what many people thought. However, that does not appear to be the case. They are coming out with this SC4 core, and because this is more of an HPC focused company, this is picking up my on my radar. So as a little bit of explanation, what an MIMD core is, think Xeon Phi. That's essentially what this is to some degree.
MIMD stands for multiple instruction, multiple data.
Mm-hmm.
So a in-order CPU is a single instruction, single data. A GPU is single instruction, multiple data. So you do the same instruction across many different threads. That's why you have. Some would say that SIMD is not a true vector engine because you're limited by the single instruction. You're actually doing a vector of scalar kernels, not a scalar of vector kernels.
I would
argue an argument to have with Jim Keller if you disagree. Now, one stage beyond that, you can have multiple instructions, single data, which is essentially a DSP.
Mm.
And then the fourth quadrant of those four is MIMD, multiple instruction, multiple data. This is essentially a many-core design. Just take your standard Xeon or AMD server core, and you've got 96 cores that can all do different data. That's technically a MIMD design.
Well,
however,
I would say that in order to do MIMD, you actually need, in this case, SMT to operate on multiple instructions.
So if I remember correctly, it was either PEZY SC2 or a SC3 variant that was 1,024 cores on a monolithic piece of silicon, but each core was essentially a 2-wide in order design with very little Very little L1 cache.
That sounds a lot like first generation Xeon Phi.
The whole point being is you just have a lot of cores that could all run different instructions. The problem with having a massively multi-core design is how do you feed the cores in the middle appropriately? I'm actually trying to find where PEZY sits on the top 500. Because annoyingly, they don't put
500.
They used to be on the top 500, but annoyingly, the list website doesn't give you one page with all 500. You have to go through 100 by 100 by 100 by 100.
And check your DMs in Discord right now.
Have you sent me the link?
Yep. I'm sending it right now.
Yeah. Clicking. Okay, here we go.
This may not be their top end version of this, but
this was installed in 2021. It's called Zeta Scalar. It's the SC3. It was 435th on the top, or it is currently. Oh no, it was only on the list once.
Yeah, it dropped off basically immediately.
But 820,000 cores. Right. It's a massive. Oh, this is HP. This is HPCG. Oh, they did all the benchmarks then. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a massively multi-core device. I actually saw the SC3 at the TSMC event, I think.
Oh, you did? Nice.
As in, they just somebody had it as a chip there, if I remember correctly. But it's yeah, the fact that they've got a 4th generation. I have a worry here because the chips haven't necessarily been that high performance to date. They've been incredibly dense if you want to talk about core count per millimeter squared. I'm not sure that's an architecture that holds up to scrutiny of modern day workloads. Now, it could be that they just have one very specific customer this is going to, or two, like a preferred networks. Thing is, I trust preferred networks more than I do these guys based on history.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't expect anybody to ask them questions about Director because that was now several years ago. But I do hope that their presentation is easy to follow, easy to understand, and
I
actually
say
that's
last year. Go ahead.
One thing that I may dock hot chips for in general is that sometimes companies pick the engineer with the inability to speak English coherently and clearly, and that's a downside. If you're involved in marketing or in any capacity, sure, have the architect there to answer questions at the end, but get somebody on the team who is a native speaker, please.
Preferred networks last year, the person who was presenting was it was rough. Like,
yeah, it's clarity in this sort of event is everything. So it's, and I get it. Sometimes, unfortunately, the person who is the lead architect doesn't speak that good English, and you really want them to be on stage. Yeah, have them on stage for the Q&A. That's perfectly fine. We've had it before. We've had talks before where one person is presented and then 4 people are there for the Q&A. That's great. But it's one of the things engineers don't realize when they, if some companies I spoke to didn't even realize they had a talk accepted. And it's like, oh, that was the team we don't speak to. Speak to them, please. Yeah, so that could be a worry for that. But hey, if anybody from PEZY is watching and you want me to present it, I will do it.
Or
100%.
I would do it.
I will do it for free.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is one that we've been waiting for. IBM is finally going to speak about at a public event that we all love. Technically, they did say have said some stuff at IBM Tech Exchange last year, and you've interviewed the lead architect here, Bill
Yep.
Stark, and now they have submitted and been accepted. So we're finally going to get the start of Power 11. They're going to call it next generation Power microprocessor, but the key focus here is Power 11. Power 10, the presentation, 4 years ago now?
Yep.
Was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of what they announced in the presentation ever came out, but things like Open CAPI, OMI, high density compute, high density memory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually know quite a bit of what's going to be in this presentation already because IBM is one of my clients, and I actually helped them with their pitch to Hot Chips this year.
So
I did. I gave them ideas. They wrote their own submission. So I'm not saying I wrote the submission and it got accepted, but
so what I will say is in my interview with Bill, he did say that the actual microarchitecture of Power 11 is not that different from Power 10, and that it was the stuff around the core that has changed.
And it's changed a lot.
Okay.
And I'm going to make sure Bill drives that home.
Okay.
Because I can't give anything away. It's going to be a good presentation. So
I hope so. And since you can't really give anything away, let's move on to the next one, and that's introducing the next generation Intel Xeon processor with efficiency cores. This, I believe, is Clearwater Forrest,
which is the chip that will be coming out in Q1 next year. This, we already know that it's going to be chiplet based with interposers, with high density Foveros packaging. Basically, it's what Sapphire Rapids should have been, but this is the E-core version.
It's more. This is what Granite Rapids should have been.
Well, no, I'm saying this should have happened earlier.
Ah, I see your point. Yes.
So, yeah, it's.
I hope we get a nice in-depth, because I know last time when they did Xeon processors, they didn't really talk about the core upgrades, which was a bit sad. I hope this time that they really do talk about the core upgrades and they talk about what they've done with the mesh.
I'm just thinking it's the same E-cores that are going into Panther, right? Or at least the enterprise versions of Panther.
That's what's rumored. I'm not positive if that's actually the case or not.
I don't think we'll know. I think this will be the first architecture disclosure of those cores.
If that's the case, then this is probably going to be one of the most exciting presentations of Hot Chips, at least for me personally. Like new E-core, woo!
Yeah. And because it says next, that's why we're saying Clearwater Forest, not Sierra Forest, because Sierra Forest is already in market. So, yeah, it's we'll see. Do we know who would be presenting that?
It might be on the list. I'm not sure.
No, it's not.
No. Then I don't know.
So we'll see. And then we have a coffee break. And then it comes into the security section. So only 2 talks for security, but I think still pretty interesting talks nonetheless.
For me, this is not super interesting, but that's just me.
This first one is a academic talk by Tsinghua University. Talking about Presto, a RISC-V compatible SoC for unified multi-scheme FHE acceleration over module lattice. Keyword here is FHE, fully homomorphic encryption. In short, this means how do you edit data that's encrypted without decrypting it? Can you work on data that is encrypted? Essentially, this allows you to add $10 to somebody's bank account without decrypting what's in their bank account. Right? So if you had a balance of $100 that was stored encrypted in a database somewhere, in order to add $10 to it today, you need to decrypt that number, add 10, then re-encrypt it. With full homomorphic encryption, you could just add 10 to that number, and you wouldn't know what the starting number is. You wouldn't know what the final number is. All you do is you know that you add 10. You couldn't even.
You just know the intermediate.
You would see that the encryption data had changed. And this is a research topic for a good reason. The big thing is that it takes about 100,000 times more compute than standard. But
yeah, I can imagine.
But it's a security thing. And obviously, as we get more complex security encryption schemes, full homomorphic encryption is going to be more complex. The thing is, demonstrating it mathematically and then demonstrating it in silicon are two entirely different things. I mean, you could probably demonstrate it in a CPU today. You would have to run it for 120 years to add 10, right? Because that's how much compute it takes. So this is an attempt to actually have FHE acceleration in a core. So yeah, security never gets many clicks, many views. Every video I've done about post-quantum cryptography, security, or anything like this, the traffic does terrible because nobody's really that interested in security. It's either there or it's not. Nobody's really that interested in the path to security, at least not on this channel, it seems. But I'll be tuning in because I might learn something about FHE. I mean, again, it's a rabbit hole I could go down, but none of my clients talk about it that much. Intel has done in the past, but and then, yeah, in terms of content, it's not a big draw. Unless I get a massive influx of people saying more FHE content or more security content, then maybe I'll talk about it. And then the second one, Azure's secure hardware architecture, establishing robust security foundation for cloud workloads, because it's Azure, it's Microsoft. I assume this is Azure's custom HSM hardware security module, or whatever they're using.
I wonder if we might get some more information about Pluton, because
this would this be part of that? I guess it would have to, because that's how they always promoted Pluton initially. Integration with the cloud.
Yeah, so like BIOS updates over the cloud, like stuff like that. So yeah.
And everybody's worry is government compromisation over the cloud if you have a dodgy government.
Everybody's adopted Pluton. Intel, AMD, and Qualcomm all have Pluton devices. Fun fact, the HP Strix Halo system I have, you can actually choose to disable Pluton in it if you wanted to. That's actually an option in the BIOS.
Zook says it could also be related to boost their in-house NIC and DPU.
It could be.
But because it's the secure hardware architecture, yeah, it's probably a more fuller stack than just one chip as well.
Hello, Zeus. How are you?
It's well, yeah, actually, there's probably people in our communities who know a lot more about this than we do. So, yeah, it's and then we get lunch. Lunch is the time. Lunch is provided if you buy a ticket. It's usually pretty good lunch. The only downside is it's never long enough because you want to network.
Yeah, agreed. If the lunch was 3 hours, it still wouldn't be long enough.
Yeah. And then we get to the first keynote of the day, or of the event. Predictions for the next phase of AI from Noam Shizia at Google. So we actually do know this keynote speaker who's speaking. I've never actually come across him before.
The name did ring a bell for me personally.
But given the fact that Google just have been on a tear with Trillium TPU, and given that most of this year we've been speaking about agentic or chain of thought AI workloads, the chances are we might get some insight into how Google sees the next gen of chain of thought and whether the TPU is the right part of that. I mean, everybody's going to argue. So Trillium is Ironwood.
Yeah, Trillium V. I think Ironwood is V7. At the very end, we'll cover Ironwood.
Or is Trillium V6? No, Trillium.
No,
Yeah, sorry, Trillium is V6.
Yes.
V6P is Trillium. Yeah.
TPU V7
Yes.
is Ironwood.
Yeah.
We'll cover that at the very end because that's the last talk of Hot Chips.
Yeah, actually, yeah, there's a separate talk on it. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, so predictions for the next phase of AI.
It's what I would like to see here is them talk about the problem of memory.
Well, what's funny is you say that, and one of the other talks is from Marvell about memory.
Yeah.
So
we can't create enough HBM fast enough.
yeah. So how do you supplement it or
Yeah.
get around it? But moving on to the graphics section.
I didn't expect to see a graphics section, I'll be honest, this year.
I'm not that surprised because
historically there's always been a graphics section, but has it really been that interesting recently?
Well, the first two talks from AMD the first talk of the section of the graphics section is AMD RDNA 4 and Radeon RX 9000 series GPUs. I don't know what they're going to cover, but I
So AMD has a history of this. They only talk about stuff that's already launched.
Yeah. And
so
they don't talk more about
you might get one slide that's different, like that shows the power planes.
Yeah.
But very often it's the same thing that we've seen before.
Give me more. And I know last year's so the second talk of the graphics section is RTX 5090 designed for the age of neural rendering. If this is anything like their presentation from last year about Blackwell and NVLink switch, then this is going to be a snooze fest.
So I think neural rendering is going to be the key point here, because when you have rays bouncing off, you saw they did, I think it's something like called like neural texturing. You have to build models with the knowledge of what textures are around it, or you can put the textures around a ray in the input of the AI model in order to get a better pixel out of it.
But like, are they going to talk about, because I know that the architecture details that NVIDIA's released about Blackwell client, not to mention the absolute lack of a white paper for Blackwell data center, has been quite, to use an NVIDIA favorite term, sparse. And I would like more detail, but I don't expect it from this talk, unfortunately.
They just announced MLPerf 5 training results this week. I was in the NVIDIA briefing for that. Big numbers, you know, using GB200 and whatever. I did ask, was any sparsity used? And they said, we are still examining utility for sparsity in training.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So for as much as sparsity is spoken about in the spec sheets, it actually being used for benchmarks seems to be negative right now.
You know what's really funny? You know where sparsity can actually be used quite often?
If you don't have any workload.
HPC. A lot of HPC workloads actually use sparse data, which is hilarious.
Yes, if you have 0 times 0 plus 0 do you actually need to move electrons around?
Yeah. Well,
That's essentially what sparsity is.
or if you have something times 1, do you actually need to compute that?
Yeah. So
But
part of it is just in software orchestration, really.
yeah.
So
But
and then
the
how
third
do you?
talk here, specialized SoC enabling low power, quote, world lock rendering, unquote, in augmented and mixed reality devices by Meta. I have no idea what this could be, but this could be really interesting. Just like on the surface.
You don't follow any of Qualcomm's XR silicon, do you?
I know vaguely that they exist. Like tangentially, I know that Qualcomm makes the XR series. But
so I should say, to our point earlier, our good friend Greg, who knows more about AI than almost anyone on the planet, says and has worked at Nvidia and a few other companies. Explicit sparsity looked promising 10 years ago, but we haven't figured out how to train sparse models. If you can listen to anyone on this stuff, it's Greg. I should get him on for an interview. I don't know if his new employer will let me. We'll see. I'll be in town soon, Greg. Let's make that happen. Back to this. Qualcomm's XR augmented reality business. Their whole thing is we need to build super low power chips, but also the modern XR device probably has a dozen doing different specialist things. So Meta obviously has a bunch of XR devices. They clearly want to talk about one and how they do it. Sensor fusion, display, low power, maybe even AI, that sort of thing. Part of the whole thing about XR is, can you do it disconnected to another device and at multiple hours of battery life? Difficult, but
so
we'll see.
After that,
the thing is, we'll probably use this hour to walk around and look at the booths and speak, but we need to rush back to if we want to see this.
Yeah.
And then final one for the day.
Networking. And the first one here, Intel Mount Morgan Infrastructure Processing Unit. I was under the assumption that the Mount series was very dead because we haven't gotten an update on it for a while. And Mount Evans, the prior generation of Mount Morgan, was a 2 by 100 gig card using 56G SerDes.
Essentially, there are two different ways to make an IPU or a SmartNIC. You either do it in FPGA or you do a custom build ASIC. And the custom build ASIC is lower power, but you don't have FPGA tools. So you have to develop the software stack and everything else around it. And what Intel had a customer who basically said, we don't want to use your FPGAs, go make us an ASIC.
Yeah, and that customer is called Google.
And I remember Mount Evans, it was Guido Appenzeller who was giving the briefings. Yeah, he's now at other companies, but this is Mount Evans, also known as ASIC E2000. As George said, 200 gig Mac built on 56 gig SerDes, PCIe Gen 4. And so from Intel, you could either buy an FPGA connected to a Xeon D in a PCIe card as a SmartNIC, or if you're Google, you bought this.
Yep.
And yeah, Mount Morgan is next generation. So the thing is, Intel's been on a spree of late of cutting departments.
Yep.
And business units. To George's point, this sounded, unless there's a bucket of money from a customer, this is one that might be on a chopping block.
I'm pretty
Dom-
sure that bucket of money is from Google. And the reason, yeah,
so here's a document. It's called the IPU roadmap fact sheet. So Intel's upcoming IPU roadmap: Mount Evans, Intel's first ASIC IPU, and Oak Spring Canyon, second Intel second generation IPU, shipping to Google and other service providers. In 23/24, Mount Morgan and Hot Springs Canyon was expected to ship, and this was meant to be the 800 gig. So you know,
yeah.
Dom says Mount Morgan was meant to come out in 23/24. I just wonder if
Yeah.
they just repurposed the Mount Morgan name to the 800 gig, assuming that they're ahead. They might not be. Thing is, this sounds like one of the talks that might be of something coming 6 to 12 months in the future.
Yeah.
Right.
And
actually, Captain K has a Google doesn't want to pay Broadcom's insane prices for these chips. Who made Google's Xeon? Was it Broadcom? Broadcom did the physical
I can't
design.
remember if it was Broadcom or Marvell. It's one of the two.
I think it was Broadcom.
No, it's Marvell. It was Marvell.
But yes, lots of people get chips designed at Broadcom, but they're expensive.
Yep.
So the FPGA-based IPU that was built on Xeon D in the FPGA, that was Oak Springs Canyon. And yeah, so here's Mount Morgan and Hot Springs Canyon, the next gen that was meant to be out last year. Yeah, so there's a document. That's what that is. Now this is one George wants to see.
Yeah, so AMD, the next talk is AMD Pensando Pollara 400 AI NIC architecture and application. We got, I think all the way back in 2020, a Hot Chips presentation about the prior generation Alba chip. And this is their, technically AMD says that you can buy it now. You probably can in certain servers, but you can't just buy it open market. And just like Mount Morgan or Mount Evans has a customer called Google, Pensando's biggest customer is actually Microsoft. And Oracle.
I mean, this came through an acquisition. AMD's very one of the key points is we want to bundle our CPU, our GPU, our networking, our FPGAs all together in a system if we can. But this is, and then part of also AMD's open standards push. They announced this at the Advancing AI event in October.
Yep.
And we'll probably hear more about it next week, actually, as well, if we're lucky.
Yeah, I frankly, give me 2 of these. I want to test the capabilities of the card.
We have friends,
and
we'll see.
Yeah, and you may hear me rant about. I think I've said this on Tech Poutine before, but hey AMD, where's my SSDK? Your website goes to dead links.
Oh, the software development kit.
Yeah. Anyway,
thing is, if you get 2 of those, you've got to get 2 of these.
Yes. The next talk is the NVIDIA ConnectX 8 SuperNIC, a programmable Rocky architecture for AI data centers. So what's interesting here is that, assuming Mount Morgan is the 400G version, we have a 400G card, a card that technically can do 800G. You need 2 ports.
In AMD.
Yep. You need, because there would be 2 ports of 400, and then you need the breakout cable for the extra X16 slot as well. That's found on the Sienna. I can't remember the exact name of the proper DPU. And then you have Nvidia with ConnectX-8, which has either 1x800G for InfiniBand or 2x400G for Ethernet. And the reason why Ethernet is not at 800 is because the 800G spec using 200 gig SerDes has not been ratified yet by IEEE.
Oh, sorry, IEEE, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why the ConnectX can do up to 800 gig on InfiniBand on a single port, but only 400G on a single port for Ethernet. And that's because they're essentially running the SerDes at half speed.
So the ConnectX-8, we already know is going to be on the DGX station, which is their workstation GB200, GB300 thing that they're going to sell for somewhere like something like 20K at OEMs. But there will be PCIe cards coming out with it. It's definitely a end of year, beginning of next product.
The ConnectX-8s will also be used in the Nvidia Pro servers as in the baseboards.
So that's the Pro RTX 6000 96 gigabytes. I think they're also doing an 80 gig version. But you put 8 of those GPUs in a server in a custom board that has 4 of these ConnectX-8s. The idea being that you can do GPU to GPU without needing to go through a PCIe switch. You actually just have a half a NIC per GPU is sufficient. Rocky here. Do you know what Rocky stands for? We practiced this at one point.
RDNA over Converged Ethernet.
What does RDNA stand for?
Remote direct memory access.
Yay! Let's give George a clap.
It's remote direct memory access over Converged Ethernet, because that's not
V2.
V2, yes.
Technically, it's V2, yes.
So also, just as a point, AMD, Intel, Synopsys, Cadence all have 200G SerDes. But the reason why it's not being used yet is, again, because the standard isn't ready yet. If you notice in speaking of Broadcom, high performance Ethernet for HPC/AI networking, Broadcom just announced the Tomahawk 6, which is probably what this is going to be based on. And the Tomahawk 6 has 2 versions, one with 512 200G SerDes, or another version with 1024 100G SerDes. I bet you the first version of Tomahawk 6 that's going to be shipping is probably going to be using 100G SerDes, with 200G SerDes coming later. Well, and the reason for that is, well,
if you're going to quote 2 companies that actually have 200 gig SerDes working, it's Nvidia and Broadcom. Everyone else is still playing catch up, and the standards are playing catch up. I know.
No, because both AMD and Intel have 200G SerDes working, not on FPGAs, but as an FPGA, like as a hardened IP on FPGA. So no, they have working 200G SerDes.
Hardened IP on FPGA. You know,
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
As in baked in as an ASIC.
Yeah.
Which FPGA products have that?
I believe you can get it in the RF version of, I want to say, the VP 1902 from AMD, and then fudge, I can never remember Intel's naming scheme. I think I want to say the F version of the
Agilex.
Yes, F4.
I mean, yes, they're all working on it. The ability to deliver at scale with the right BER. But yeah, Broadcom. So Tomahawk 5 was called Bailey. Tomahawk 6. I actually have an image for this if I can find it. I took it at OFC. These. Yeah. Okay, this is called Davison. Let me see if I can upload this file. One of my enter buttons isn't working.
That's annoying.
Here we go.
Davidson. Interesting.
So Davison.
Yeah.
There's no
Davison.
second D.
Davison.
Davison.
That's what I said.
So this first chip, Bailey,
Mhm.
that's also at the heart of their on-package optics
Interesting.
design. And then, yeah. So Davison here is 2026, which is funny given the fact that the press release says it ships now.
Huh.
And if you're wondering, but hang on, this says CPO, this says optics. We were talking about electrical. If you go back to, I have to go back this way. If you go back to here, it says option for CPO, option for optics. It also says compliant with UEC. It doesn't say what standard of UEC. So it's funny that they're saying shipping now, but literally at OFC they were saying 2026. So maybe the optics version isn't ready to 2026. That might be the case. So
yes.
Yeah.
And I guess the last thing to mention is Ultra Ethernet Consortium. Sorry, not Ultra Ethernet Consortium. Ultra Ethernet support on Tomahawk 6.
I actually had a bunch of Broadcom people add me on LinkedIn recently. If any of you guys are watching, reach out. Let's chat. I'd love to be briefed on stuff like this in the future. Right now, Broadcom has almost no outreach. There's a reason for that, but I'd still love to talk to people about it. Now we get on to day 2. We spent an hour on day 1, as we said we would. So let's go to day 2.
Day 2. You probably know more about this first one, so I'm gonna let you take off.
So it says networking here. That's wrong. It's optics.
Yeah.
This is something I've been requesting the committee to add for a couple of years now. Have an optics session. We've got enough optics company where it makes sense to start talking about this. And we have the 3 startups that are making the most noise, and the one that has made the most noise this year.
Yep.
So first up is Celestial AI. They did a massive fundraise last year. One of their advisors is Lip Bhutan, now CEO of Intel.
Yeah.
And they're doing 2 things. One of which looks like an optical I/O interposer, and the other one looks like a optical I/O chiplet. And the way they're talking about expansion is not only chip to chip, but also chip to memory. So instead of having your memory controller, your HBM memory controller on the shoreline of your silicon connected to a HBM, you convert that into an optical link that goes to a daughter board that has multiple HBM controllers on it, and multiple HBMs or multiple DDRs. But because the optical link is fast enough, you can get high capacity back into your chip. But this is the fabric module, so this might actually be the ASIC to ASIC version of that. So they spoke to me first like 2 years ago, and they were doing something called an FAU, which is like this 90-degree vertical thing that came out of your chip and went into another chip, and I went, that looks weird because it's vertically out of the chip. And they said, no, it's fine. I met up with them again a couple of weeks ago. I'm actually waiting for a slide deck to drop into my inbox because I spent more time listening than actually taking notes when I was at the offices. Met the CEO, met the CPO or CCO or COO. Yeah, great guys to speak to. We're very, more than happy to answer questions. Don't necessarily want to do lots of promotion because their big thing is that their customer base is about 8 companies max. They're going after big companies, and CPO is a thing that requires a lot of expense. So yeah, chances that we're going to hear a lot out of them over the next few years aren't that high. At OFC, at the fiber conference, optical fiber conference, the Celestial booth wasn't a booth, it was a meeting room. So you had to have meetings in advance. But they're promising some high numbers. They showed me some silicon and some connections. They didn't show me it running, but they said this is what it looks like when it's in. Hopefully they will. I mean, one of the big things for all of these companies, and we'll get to them individually, is show it running. So speaking
of showing things running, IR.
It's this one. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because they've got some interesting technology here.
Speaking of having shown things, IR Labs.
So for full disclosure, IR is a client of mine. I didn't help them with their submission, but they are a client of mine.
So IR has, I believe, been shipping, or at least has demoed enough that people are interested in it.
The only company out of these 3 to actually demo anything.
Yes.
Publicly.
And I believe their newest generation is an 8 terabit per second optical chiplet that they announced at Supercomputing 2024. Or were at least showing. I think the formal announcement happened at OFC.
The formal announcement at OFC was this. They have an optical I/O retimer chiplet that's UCIe compatible.
Oh, I thought it was their 8 terabit.
It is, but it's UCIe compatible. That's the big thing.
Oh, okay. So then I guess question: why do you need a retimer for UCIe?
It's. I think retimer is just an added word here.
Okay, so it's just a UCIe optical chiplet.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. That makes a lot more sense than I was getting very confused on a retimer. I was like, why do you need a retimer for an optical?
No, I think in this language, every optical chiplet is a retimer.
Oh, okay.
Right, because you're converting the electrical signal to an optical signal, and therefore you have to time it. Yeah. So, one thing here is Celestial is using an optical technology called MZE, I think, not MZM, MZE, and their whole thing is that it's thermally stable, as in there's no variation in the signal over thermal temperature. But I believe MZEs, I think they've found a way to shrink them down, but it may not be the most power. There's some pluses and minuses to MZEs, though.
There's
I don't know if
be pluses and minuses.
Yeah, So IR Labs are using micro-ring resonators, MRRs, and MRRs are really tiny, really dense, but have thermal variability. The way IR is doing a number of tricks to such as thermal jackets and stuff to make it so that's not an issue, or you put in the right amount. You design it such that temperature is not an issue. In that Lightmatter, I think are also using micro resonators, but their approach is a little different to these two.
Yeah, so I
they
want
have
to talk
two
about
products.
this. I want to talk about the Passage for a little bit. The Passage M1000 is not a chiplet; it's an interposer. So the title of the talk is Passage M1000 3D Photonic Interposer for AI. At first, when I first saw this, my eyes went wide and went, oh, "This is so cool! This is awesome!" After doing a little bit of more investigation, my enthusiasm has dimmed somewhat. And the reason for that is this is a 4,000 square millimeter interposer that they're claiming can deliver over 1.5 kilowatts of power. But if you're saying over 1.5, that doesn't mean 2 kilowatts of power. And if you do a kilowatt per or a watt per millimeter squared, that's less than half a watt per millimeter squared. Blackwell's already at 1 watt per millimeter squared, roughly. Slightly less than that, but we've blown well past half a watt per millimeter squared.
So the thing is, you have your interposer is also your optical array. You put the chips on the interposer. In this case, in this diagram, we have 8. And it's the 8 A6 are whatever's 1.5 kilowatts. The thing is, not everybody needs 2 kilowatts, right? Some people are quite happy at 600 watts, whatever. And then you have your lid on top. The thing is, not only is the the whole chip to chip optical, but your chiplet to chiplet is also optical. And with that, you can have massively high bandwidth. It also means you the way they've done it supposedly is that you reduce a lot of the overhead of having a optical chiplet and an electrical chiplet all in one. Separate. And that's how they've got the power down.
You're still going to have an electrical to optical to electrical transition, which will likely add a penalty in latency that you don't expect for a die-to-die interconnect on the same interposer.
Compared to a traditional package delay, it's faster, but in terms of bandwidth, it can be 1000x. Also with this, one of the things with co-packaged optics and chiplets is that you are kind of limited to your shoreline. With this design, your optical IP, wherever it is in your compute silicon, can be wherever. It doesn't have to be on the shoreline. So now you can expand chip to chip connectivity because you're not limited by the shoreline. You're limited by the interposer. And that's the benefit here. I'm actually trying to look for a very specific photo because I took a bite of one of their Passage wafers at ISSCC one year. But it's not in any of the slide decks. Or it's not in any of the normal. Was it? I've got a feeling it was ISSCC 22. Annoyingly, this is one picture I keep trying to find, and I thought I put it. I thought it's on Twitter, but it's not, seemingly. And most of my ISSCC directories aren't images; it's just all the PDFs of all the presentations. Yeah, that's annoying. Anyway, you talk about this. I'll try and see if I can find it.
So, I was going to let you talk about this because I know you were going to have a rant about how at least what Nvidia was showing at GTC is not really co-package optics in the.
Well, I've done a video on that. So
yeah. If you want to hear Ian rant about this, go watch Ian's video about it. But what this is Spectrum. I believe this is Spectrum X. They're working with, I believe, Cisco on this, if I remember correctly. And yeah, it's Nvidia was making a big stink about it at GTC, and both Ian and I went.
Right, so they have an Ethernet version and an InfiniBand version. The InfiniBand version comes out first, I think. And the one thing they did do is they separated. This is me biting Passage. I found the image.
Okay.
This is their big wafer version, not the smaller one that's actually in products. It's from 2021, actually. Shows you how long that they've been going on for. This is IEDM, not ISSCC. That's why I couldn't find it. They announced it right before OFC, the Optical Fiber Conference. So it kickstarted the let's talk about optical direct attach optics to XPUs. One thing that is interesting is that the lasers are separate in the switches, so they're just replaceable. You can just put them in and put them out, just like you would do a normal transceiver for a networking module. And yeah, it is interesting what they've done with their partners. We still need to see it working. We still need to see it working at scale. With any luck, this will talk about the design, the technology, and more importantly, the packaging.
Honestly, again, if this is anything like,
yeah,
they're historically like, I mean, I'll be honest, if I see how many they're doing, 2, hold on, what's their total? 1, 2, 3. If they're going to do, actually 4, excuse me. If it's just gonna be like the NVLink stuff from last year, like they honestly stop presenting it at Hot Chips and let somebody else have that slot.
Yeah, it was more about the industry benefits of NVLink rather than this is what NVLink actually is.
Yeah.
So that's co-packaged silicon. That's all silicon. So let's talk about power and methodology. Now, this is a company that's presented before. Fabricate Labs. We saw Fabricate Labs last year. I think it was last year, wasn't it?
No, it was 23.
23. They were talking about custom electro-deposited copper heat sinks for liquid cooling.
Was a standout presentation. I have to give credit for.
I even did a video with PC World on it.
Yeah, I was not expecting much out of that presentation.
Yeah,
it was the wild card for me. Of that Hot Chips.
I mean, it made sense what they were doing. I have since spoken to a company who said, yeah, we looked into their solution. We've got them as a second supplier, but it's 30x the cost of our standard solution. And unfortunately, that sort of thing isn't 30x the cooling capacity. right? It's a percentage increase, not a multiplier increase. But that's something that if scales, the cost could come down straight away. This, on the other hand, is so their process is called ECAM, electroadditive copper or electro-copper additive manufacturing, I think.
Electrochemical additive manufacturing.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not just copper. Enabled advanced thermal management solutions for the AI data center. What? Are we now going to put chips into the base plate or sensors into the base plates of cooling? Or are we going to redesign the heatsink to have, if you told me thermal management solution for the data center, I expect it to be like a fleet management system, right? As in, you have sensors everywhere on every chip. We already know that there are companies out there like Proteantex that will provide, extensive intra-chip data while the chip is running. But these guys aren't inside the chip, they're outside the chip, but they're inside the data. Hopefully this isn't a software tool. I'd really hate this to be a software tool.
I don't think it is. I think this is more like a bad title for what they want. I hope.
Yeah, guys, if you're watching this, reach out. Tell us that it's better than the title suggests. Yeah. Thermal management solution sounds like such a wanky PR title.
Yes.
It's a solution.
The second.
Yeah. Sorry.
The second presentation is ever-active self-powered SoC with energy harvesting, wake-up receiver, and energy-aware subsystem. I'll be honest, I will probably be outside talking with people and/or looking at the presentations.
So
posters.
Last week, during Computex, or maybe this was during TSMC event, a set of news hit my feed from a company called Vaire Computing, VAIRE. And their big news is they were in the process of creating a adiabatic reversible computing chip. The idea being that it is an energy-free compute platform.
Excuse me while I go roll my eyes 15,000 times.
I've looked into this. Imagine your waveforms being trapezoidal for clock gen.
Uh-huh.
Not square wave, trapezoidal.
Uh-huh.
Turns out it's really, really difficult. But the whole idea is that you have essentially a reversible transistor. And
that's not adiabatic. Okay. I'm about to.
It also uses resonators.
Well, cut me off in 2 minutes, but I'm sorry, but you can't get something out of nothing. That's not how this works.
No, I know it's not something out of nothing.
Energy to do work.
But the idea is that the energy per bit drops by a factor 10,000.
But you're still using energy.
Yes.
Like
it's I've literally been to a what's the Department of Defense equivalent in the UK? That an event there.
DARPA, but
no, where they had a session on adiabatic computing. Yeah,
I mean,
no, it wasn't the MOD job. It was DSTL. But no, yes, it's not something for nothing. It's just super. It's instead of it taking so many picojoules per bit, you divide that by 10,000, and you essentially do it as if how many quantums of energy, how many Planck energies does it take per bit?
I'm
So-
sorry if I.
So this probably uses it's probably a system that harnesses energy from the environment, which never goes too well. And if you really want to understand why, go watch anything by Dave over at EEV blog. A wake-up receiver, okay, that's fine, and an energy-aware subsystem, i.e., it will go slow when it's running out of energy, like
Everything
just
else.
DVFS. The problem is VMIN.
Yeah.
As
Now,
always.
VMIN can be very low. It can be, I think, I remember
0.3.
I was, huh?
Intel's got a low VMIN process that it used for the Bonanza mine crypto ASIC chips. That's about 0.3, 0.4 volt.
Yeah, well, no, I was remembering because I was looking it up. TSMC's N12E process, which is a VMIN of below 0.4 volts, right?
Yeah.
But there's still a VMIN.
Yeah, if you're able to absorb nano amps or nanojoules of energy out of the air, yeah, it's and it'd be interesting to see if this is actually a demo or if it's just a concept.
I'm pretty sure it's just a concept. Anyway, moving on to the next thing. Taping out 3 class chips per semester in Intel 16 technology from UC Berkeley.
So Intel 16 is basically what they used to call 22 FFL.
Yes, but it's changed a lot from what I know.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, what 22 FFL was a relaxed. This is very confusing as well. It was a relaxed 14 nanometer derivative. So they relaxed the gate pitches. They made it less dense essentially. When Intel did their big node relabeling, that was relabeled to Intel 16, which has since actually had more advancements done to it.
Yeah. It can now do RF. MediaTek uses it.
Yep.
So, but the point of this talk is methodology, right?
Which is interesting,
right? If you're at a university and you're part of a team that's designing a chip, you'll have talking about 3-year cycles of PhD students. I know in the US it's longer, but whatever. The first set will design it. The second set will tape it out. The third set will bring it up. So you've got 9 years to build a chip on a 90 nanometer process. This is 3 chips in a semester. So this is part of, this might be part of a SCIP or a government program, a RAMP program or whatever. But
this might also just be UC Berkeley going.
This is probably multi-project wafer stuff. So multi-project wafers, you'll have 50 chips on a wafer, and that has some inherent risk because you can't guarantee what's on the other side of your scribe line, the boundary between the chips, and that can cause some inherent manufacturing variability beyond. This is why when you see a wafer of something, a product, a proper released product, the wafer is just all that, because that's regularity, right? So this is going to be interesting just to hear about how they were able to get up to speed with taping out 3 chips in a semester in what I assume is a research group or some sort of research class. Taping out does not mean validate. Taping out does not necessarily mean design. We'll see what that means. This could be something like I don't know, ARM CSS based, or
probably not, but
or something that you just get into the drop down of synopsis and say, this is done. Let's add something and then do it together.
So after that is lunch, and then the keynote for that year is up and running with Rapidus. How Japan and cutting edge technologies are transforming the semiconductor manufacturing. I assume there's supposed to be an industry there.
No. How Japan and cutting-edge technologies are transforming semiconductor manufacturing.
Okay.
So the
Yeah, I know
point
that.
here is
I added
Rapidus.
a the. Oops.
Yeah, Rapidus is the only attempt in 20 years for a new entrant into leading-edge semiconductor manufacturing. Over the last 20 years, we went from 20 companies down to 15, down to 6, then 5, then 4, now 3. Rapidus wants to be up that to number 4.
Arguably 2.
Yeah, you can argue semantics all day. Up to 4. They're doing this. It's a consortium of Japanese companies with backing by the government, technology partnership with IBM, chip design partnership with Tens Torrent and others. This is Japan's attempt to create a new fab on Japanese soil that can do 2 nanometer gate all around. Yet Canon and Nikon are both part of this as well, I believe, because their tools will definitely be in the fab regardless. Japan's building this to basically saying we can manufacture chips on the leading nodes again. It's a part of personal pride. I actually recorded a video on this for PC World back in December. Unfortunately, it was the week before Gordon passed, so it's kind of been put on the back burner. Adam sent me the files actually last week, saying, "Can you check this is still?" I actually recorded several videos, but this was one of them. And they said, "Is this still relevant?" And I watched through it, and I mentioned the fact that December they were opening the fab, or at least doing the ribbon cutting ceremony. No, sorry. December, they were installing the first EUV machine. And in February, they were doing the ribbon cutting ceremony to essentially say, you know, the building's complete, not the tools. And that happened. Chances are it's going to be heavily focused on the Japanese chip market. So think Sony and others. Fujitsu. All the car companies as well, developing their own self-driving ASICs and what have you. And there may be even some, might be some South Korean chip making there. There might be some US chip making there, but ultimately it's designed, for Japan first. And a number of my clients are part of this agreement. The only company I don't speak to is Rapidus, annoyingly. So one thing I'd love to do on a trip to Japan is to actually go see the fab. And so I'm really interested in this because this is almost nothing to do with how fast a chip is or how to design a chip or the power or the methodology or the networking. This is how do we build a new fab from scratch on a leading edge? And
which is a very different thing for hot chips to cover, but honestly it's quite relevant to hot chips.
This is a this guy's a CEO, by the way.
Oh,
of Rapidus. So he used to be senior VP of technology and fab at SanDisk.
Oh, interesting.
So this is the sort of thing a keynote is supposed to be. Make you think.
So moving on, one of the keynotes.
So 2 sessions left now, and they're all machine learning.
Yep, and we have and we've gone up nearly 2 hours, like I expected. So the first session, of the machine learning blocks 1 and 2 is memory, almost the only thing that matters, by Marvell. I wonder if this is going to be talking about HBM4.
It is.
Okay.
At Marvell's Analyst Day last year, which is like December, first week of December, second week of December, they made a big song and dance about how custom HBM4 will revolutionize or provide opportunity that hasn't existed in the HBM market before, right? Because the custom HBM means do what you want. the reason why custom HBM4 exists is, oops, sorry, the standard isn't ready yet by JEDEC. The only time we had custom HBM before was HBM1, because it was literally custom. It was the first one. So I've got a feeling that this is Marvell's big attempt to say we're working with a lot of people on custom HBM4. The point is, you can change the because there's no specification. As long as you hit 1024 bits wide, you can do different things in the memory controller. You can HBM4 has a base die now that has logic inside because it's built on a leading edge process node. So you can do things in the logic die as well to help the performance and the reliability of HBM. Probably not compute, but things like managing wear leveling a lot better in the HBM stacks, that sort of thing. So the thing is, they're obviously going to tailor this to AI, and memory almost the only thing that matters. It'd be interesting if they also spoke about stacked memories, like DRAMs and SRAMs. Or they might also include here, because they also had SerDes connectivity, that sort of thing. We mentioned SerDes before, but I mentioned that because the next one is a talk from Huawei. Now, FutureWay, which is a separate company to Huawei, but does a lot of R&D. I'm not saying who they do it for. FutureWay has sent people to Hot Chips for years. And there are many FutureWay offices in the Bay, in Texas. So you see the people at every conference. But this is a Huawei talk. UB-Mesh, Huawei's next-gen AI supercomputer with a unified bus interconnect and nD-FullMesh architecture. If you've not seen the news recently, aside from Jensen saying it doesn't matter if the Chinese need more than one chip, if they need 2 or they need 4, they will use them because they have unlimited space and unlimited power, essentially. What he's referring to there is the latest presentation given by Huawei on their Ascend 910C or 920, whatever their latest Ascend chip is, their rack scale AI supercomputer version of that. And of course, everybody has questions. What's in the chip? How are they making the chips? Where are they getting chips made? Where are they getting the memory from? And one key part of all that is how are they connecting the chips together? Not only in terms of chiplets, but also from ASIC to ASIC. And that, we understand, is UB-Mesh. So this talk will likely give a light overview of what the supercomputer is, not a deep dive into the architecture of Ascend. Yes, this is the Huawei Cloud Matrix. Yep, I did forget the name. Thank you for catching up on that. But I suspect this is more an attempt to talk about the interconnect and how it looks like they might have a unified memory architecture across a multi-rack system, like NVLink.
Okay, one, NVLink ain't that. Excuse me while I go scream into the next room. And
they market it as that.
It's not, and I don't care what NVIDIA marketing says, that's potatoes. But two, looking at so there was a paper. I actually think I put it in the. If you want to pull it up, the paper. I expect this presentation to be. Hopefully, it's not a rehashing of this.
Probably is, actually.
If it is, then I'm going to be disappointed. But now, networkings are hard for my brain to understand. But to me, what this architecture looks like is dragonflies within dragonflies. Now, a dragonfly architecture, if you want to scroll down to the third page, figure 3, dragonfly is that. And to me, what they're proposing in UB-Mesh just looks like a dragonfly of dragonflies.
Which is fine. 3D Torus, 2D Torus, or Fugaku Tofu. These are pretty much all familiar. The way
Also-
Dragonfly is meant to be a really good mix of chip-to-chip connectivity, but also minimizing hop-to-hops between systems, right? We could spend multiple hours speaking about network topology if we actually prepped stuff in advance. That's fine. The thing is, that's the topology, right? The how. So it says our UB mesh is hierarchically localized bandwidth allocation. The interconnect is all electrical cables, and they say cost efficiency is high because they're not using optical links. What they mean here is that the switch to switch is electrical, not optical.
No. So if you scroll down to page 4, this is something that pissed me the hell off because the media got this so wrong. What does it say there for AZ, for YY and your Z dimensions? It says electrical cable, like everybody else. This is not all optical cables. I'm sorry, that's just wrong. And the media reported it wrong. Now, optical cables for 100 meters, 1,000 meters, of course you're going to need optical cables for that. Everybody uses optical cables for that. But within a rack, and even within a group of racks, it's electrical cables. It's copper, guys. Sorry, this pissed me off when I read it because it's like, can nobody click onto a fucking link and read the bloody paper?
No, look at the coverage around how people said that Nikon's nano imprint technology could resolve down to 1 nanometer. That was somebody extrapolating a graph.
Sorry, this, when it's this blatant and it's right in your face, this pisses me off.
George, teaching a boober to print PDF is similar to teaching a generic journalist to understand a technical paper. It may be written in plain English, but, we say scientific literacy is low in the general media. Part of it is also time and race to publish. And the publisher's accuracy is a sliding scale. So,
sorry, I get really. I'll stop.
What I think is important here, though, is UB mesh looks like it's a chip to accelerator, accelerator to accelerator. So instead of you relying on things like PCIe, InfiniBand, NVLink, it's all just the same mesh topology. So, and then we get some architecture designs. Dragonflies.
That's also
it's
like,
I will put this link because it's open access. So
is this interesting? Yes. Is this revolutionary and never been seen before? No.
Nobody's done it at this scale, though.
SGI and Cray would like to disagree with you.
Nobody's done it at this scale in the last 20 years.
Cray and SGI would like to disagree with you.
Well, I know Cray does Dragonfly, but they do traditional Dragonfly. It's you know what's interesting here on this paper? One of these names is not like the others.
Yeah. I wonder which one. Bill McCall.
he won the PGA Professional Championship during. No, not him. I may have met him before. Actually, the picture looks familiar.
That's funny.
Okay, he's the director of Huawei research in Zurich. Because don't forget, while Huawei is banned from the US, it's not banned from Europe at all.
So
yeah.
Actually, what's funny is you know where a lot of Huawei CPU engineers are from?
Samsung.
Nope. Well, maybe, but a large contingent actually is Israeli, Intel Israel.
Yeah. Well, don't forget they used to have high silicon, so
yeah,
still kind of do, but yeah.
Anyway, moving on to the next talk. Corsair, an in-memory computing chiplet architecture for inference time computing compute acceleration by D-Matrix. Okay, again, titles, guys.
It's so we've seen in-memory compute before. Chiplet in this case, defining chiplet, and inference compute acceleration. Okay, these are all words put together that make sense.
The Corsair architecture, in terms of the die layout, you can think of it as Naples. It's essentially for the exact same die in a.
I've got a picture for this.
Okay. They have an image on their site, but.
Yeah. That's right. We'll do this. There was an issue with your file. File too big, probably. Well, this is what the PCIe card looks like. Right, two chips there.
So that's not the finalized one, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Hang on, I'm trying to upload this picture again.
But the interesting thing with the D-Matrix cards is not. I mean, part of it is that it's in memory computing, but it's that they also have a metric ton of LPDDR on them.
The reason why the image wouldn't show is because it was 20 megs.
Yeah. I wonder why.
Yeah, I'll get a different version. Here we go. Yeah, there we
go. They also misspelled first.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is from supercomputing.
Yep.
So these are all built on Global Foundries.
No.
12.
These are not. It's not GlobalFoundries. It's TSMC.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure it's N6.
I thought in my notes I had GloFo N12. But this is a first generation chip. They're going to be doing more than this. Yeah, so the whole point here is chiplet strategy. This is 1600 square millimeters of silicon. It's got an all-to-all connectivity. So the idea is that it's fast together. As you can see, it has high teraflop numbers, and 1 gigabyte of SRAM on board, so 250. So actually, yeah, no, you're right. It probably is N6 because that's 1 Grok chip per chiplet. 1 Grok chip's worth of SRAM per chiplet for 1 gig combined. The key thing here is the memory is right close. The idea being that you have super low latency connected to your ALUs or your vector engines, but also it supports micro scaling or block floats or however you want to call them. The ability to, you don't need, so if you want to represent a floating point number, you have the exponent and the mantissa, or the thing that you raise to a power of 2 to a power of, and the multiplier. Thing is, if the multiplier is if the exponent is the same, you can have a you only need to store the exponent once, and you can store everything else as a group, and you save memory doing that. But the thing is, it's hard to put into silicon,
So
and that's what they've done.
the biggest sort of detriment, I guess, of this chip, of this architecture, is that it only supports block flow int. There is no FP of any kind on this chip.
Yeah, so
So if I actually talked to these guys at Supercomputing.
I've actually spoken to them 2 or 3 times since.
But
It's there may be things happening. The architecture is traditional on the left, where you have the memory outside, even if it's low bandwidth HBM. So LB HBM. Imagine if we started calling DRAM LBM.
I mean,
you're not wrong.
Yeah.
But also digital in-memory compute here, it looks like they've got a process where you have memory multiply, accumulate. So you have high bandwidth memory, the idea with high bandwidth SRAM, just like, almost like a Cerebrus chip, you can get massively high throughput on your inference in terms of tokens per second because of that memory bandwidth. But as George said, you also pair that with a lot of LPDDR on the back end.
Yeah.
This is the block floating point thing I was talking about. Normally you would represent a number like this, where it turns out if you have the data in the right format, you can do it like this. Tesla does this as well in Dojo. Chiplets and packaging, we saw the 4 chiplets. And the idea being that you can do scale up and scale out, just like other companies. Built with open software such as PyTorch, MLIR, Triton. And there's a white paper, if you really want to read it, we'll stick in. And but Phantom Tech says it has 2 DDR5 SODIMM modules on board.
No. He's talking about Bolt.
Bolt.
Yes,
Okay.
We're aware of Bolt. We actually talked about Bolt on a previous tech routine.
Yeah, I've actually got a video recorded. It's like 40 minutes long. I need to. Yeah. It's been edited. I need to check it.
Tech routine number 20, our 4-hour-long marathon.
Yeah. Sam from IEEE Spectrum, great guy. Everybody should follow him. Sam asks, I wonder how often the exponent is the same. Turns out a lot. It's all to do with accuracy and range, obviously. And if you're smart, you can manipulate the ranges to be what you need to be in the range you need to be. Don't forget, there's also operations here called softmaxes and relus. The whole point here is that your range of numbers may be from 0 to 10,000, right? Or negative 10,000 to 10,000. What a relu does is it gives you a factor that means you can reduce that number set down to between -1 and 1, or 0 and 1. Or like a relu takes anything that's negative, makes it flat, makes it the floor is 0, and then you have a linear progression. Softmax is more sinusoidal, and this is whenever we refer to custom operators in AI, it's doing these sorts of operations, but they, maybe 1/1 plus tan to the x, whatever, all sorts of different ways on reducing your data set down to between different values. So yeah, this is why microscaling is supported in Blackwell. I believe it's also supported in TensTorrent natively.
Mm-hmm.
It does depend, like George said, this is only int microscaling.
Yeah.
So what I'm talking about here is a lot of floating point. Int is different. It's a little different.
Yeah. So moving on to D matrix.
I just want to point out there is a white paper on this. It's I don't want to say it's surface level. It gives a good overview, but I've got a feeling that the talk will hopefully go into a bit more detail than this
So-
on the architecture.
Moving into
Yeah.
the last section, the first talk of the final section of Hot Chips 2025 is NVIDIA's GB10 SoC. AI supercomputer on your desk.
What do you mean? You don't want 1,000 tops of sparse FP4?
No. My quotes here is because a supercomputer is built on its storage.
George is coming from the fact that he did astrophysics degree.
Yeah, granted, we never did anything on a supercomputer, but my position is a supercomputer is built on its storage rather than even its compute or networking. This is partly why I look at Jupiter and I go, this is not an HPC machine or a traditional supercomputer. This is for AI. It's because the bandwidth of the storage at 3 terabytes per second reads and 2 terabytes per second writes for an exascale system is like a factor of 4, at least 4 off of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So,
nonetheless, this is
anyway,
this is what was formerly Digits, now DGX Spark.
mhm.
This is we've covered this on the channel before, but 20 ARM cores built on a SoC by MediaTek, paired with a chiplet from Nvidia, connected by NVLink chip to chip.
So we actually do have a little bit more information. From actually, thanks to Tetra, the folks who run Computex.
Tetra.
Yes, thank you. They accidentally said how many SMs there are in the GB10. So there's 6,144 ALUs, which is 48 SMs.
Put that into consumer card.
That
lingo
is
for me.
approximately a 50-70, I believe, in terms of SM count. Let me double check.
Okay. So MediaTek did their chiplet, Nvidia did their chiplet. MediaTek worked with TSMC to put it together, to package it. This is in a system that has 128 gigabytes of LPDDR5X. It also has a Connect X8 networking switch. It also has
Connect X7.
Sorry, 7. The Connect X7. Does it have Thunderbolt, or is it just Type C?
I don't remember.
But all of this in something that's about 4 inches or 5 inches square and 1.5 inches high, 2 inches high, with a somewhere between 120 and 170 watt TDP.
Mm-hmm. Now,
this is technically, people who went to GTC could have ordered it already. Jensen says he expects first systems to be shipping in a few weeks, and you should be able to get one by end of year. We were expecting to have them in hand now.
Yeah. So it's been delayed.
Yep.
So I'm going to rant a little bit here. Dom, you said roughly RTX 5070 GPU performance.
It's got LPDDR.
No, not just that. Throw that to left field. It's based on data center architecture. Now, I won't run you through the math because we're running out of time. But let's just say that NVIDIA, that one petaflop of FP4 number, FP4 sparse. Yeah, I don't know how they're getting that with 6144 ALUs unless they're either dumping the clock speed to like 300 megahertz, or this is a different tensor core from standard data center. Because Drive Thor, which is NVIDIA's next generation successor to Orin, has 2 petaflops of FP4 sparse, but has 24 SMs. 20, but 96 tensor cores. So how are you getting double the FP4 sparse with half of the SMs?
Easy. You run it at 170 watts.
Thor's 120.
Funny enough, I just asked ChatGPT, and it says you need to run it at 81 gigahertz. I think something's wrong.
Yeah. The math ain't math in here. Anyway, to move on to the next topic.
One thing I want to say is these systems are, you might think of it as competing in the same space as maybe Apple's M3 Ultra or AMD Strix Halo. Each have their pluses and minuses. Some are price, some are networking, some are availability, some are software stacks. I'm hoping that we get more information about the raw chip, about GB10, not the system it's in, because we know so much about the system it's in already, the chip. And it's funny enough that's being presented by Nvidia, not MediaTek.
So
we'll see.
Moving on to, I don't know if MediaTek has ever given a hot chips presentation.
I think they have.
Oh, maybe. Anyway, the next talk is 4th generation AMD CDNA generative AI architecture powering AMD Instinct MI350 series accelerators and platforms. Now, as Ian stated at the very top of the show, I will be at AMD's Advancing AI event in the next week.
Next week. July 12th. Sorry, June 12th.
But yeah, I'll be in the Bay Area for that. And I don't expect this talk to be giving anything new. Although, again, at the top of the hour, you mentioned MLPerf training V5 coming out. AMD submitted numbers for MI300 and MI325X for trading.
They've probably already run it on MI350, but they couldn't post them because
it's probably one of their things to run down and test.
Next week. That's fine. It's Again, they're gonna say it all next week.
Yep.
What will be at Hot Chips will be a rehash, pretty much.
I really hope it's not, but it's almost certainly going to be.
Yeah.
Anyway.
To answer your question, has MediaTek ever presented our Hot Chips? Yes, the original Dimensity 9000.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Hot Chips 34, which is what, 22, 21?
Yeah. The final presentation at Hot Chips 2025 is Ironwood, delivering best-in-class performance per TCO, which is total cost of ownership, and performance per watt for reasoning model and training and serving. TCO is terrible.
That is the worst metric. TCO is total cost of ownership, so
which factors in performance.
It's like
it should be best-in-class performance, efficiency, and TCO.
It's like, how many watts per second do you need your microwave to be? Right?
Yes, I need my seconds squared, please, because I need to accelerate my joules.
But this is TPU V7.
Yep.
Ironwood. TPUs, we know, use systolic array architectures. They've previously gone into depth, I think, with TPU V2, V3, and V5.
V4, I think they kind of touched on V5.
So some of the history they've glossed over. If this is actually a proper deep dive into the architecture, that's great.
I would be very happy.
Thing is, it does say for reasoning model training and serving. So half of that talk is going to be benchmark numbers about agentic chain of thought flows.
That should be in their keynote, my guys.
Yes, or at least the concept go. That's
Yeah.
where we're going towards. This should be sort of like 2 or 3 slides max, and the other 16 slides should be
architecture, hopefully.
or at least understanding how these pods are different to previous pods. They have the closing talk, and in typical Hot Chips fashion, they try to put a banger at the end, so people
They
stay.
want you to stay for the last.
Thing is, if they wanted people to stay, they would also have a reception afterwards.
Yeah, they'd have a dinner. Yeah.
Though they do hand out ice creams typically in the afternoon of the second day.
And before we close out from this, from Hot Chips, which looks like an absolute wonderful Hot Chips.
There are a couple of people missing.
I was going to say posters. Based on what's here, just a real quick note, not going through any of them in particular. Large Korean contingent, major Korean contingent for this Hot Chips posters.
What, Yonsai?
Yonsai's Korean.
Kyungpook?
Yep. Korean, KAIST, Korean.
Case?
Yep.
Oh.
This is Korean. HyperXL is also Korean.
Why am I getting confused with Middle East one? Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's Korea. That's Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology.
So I will say that the Korean government are pushing hard to get more exposure of Korean technology into the West. There was talk about maybe a press tour by one of the Korean science departments of Western press around to the Korean tech companies. So So Sam has got it. I'm mistaking it for Kaust. Not cased. Yes. So it's we've got HyperXL is actually a company we're familiar with. Funnily enough, the affiliation has a space in the name, but the title of the paper doesn't. This is all very academic. I've seen this before, Gaussian splatting, actually at a UK event. Broker, I've heard of that before. Mega Mini.
This was a
an
presentation at ISSCC this year.
Was it? Okay.
Yep.
This is why Murata is a sponsor. They're doing silicon IPD. Silicon-based integrated passive devices. Yeah, that sounds very Murata. Yeah. And then
autos, never. That's simple, never.
Well, no, they do send a contingent to the Olympics. Thing is, what process node? What process node are they going to build it on? Oh, I guess
Micron 65.
No, because they can't use Micron.
No,
SMIC.
Micron with a K.
Oh, Micron.
Yes, Micron. Or is it Micron? Micron and Micron, but yeah.
No, SMIC or whatever Russia has access to.
Yeah, well, that's 65.
Yeah. So we have Hot Chips. See you there. I don't think this one is going to be as heavy on me doing interviews this year.
It depends. So for me, if they send, depending on who Intel sends for the Xeon talk, if that's Stephen Robinson, I want to interview him on camera. And depending on who AMD sends for Pensando, I may also want them on camera.
Isn't Stefan consumer e-cores, not enterprise e-cores?
He's general, I believe.
Because we met him at the ITT Taiwan.
Yes,
when they announced when they did Lunar Lake disclosures. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, there's no time for interviews in this.
Yeah.
So we have to see if they're available the day after, and then find out where they're working and if they're actually local to the Bay.
Or you have to have a very short lunch.
Yeah, the thing is, you want to spend time speaking to people as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to the second topic, which.
So we should actually have a mid-roll sponsor spot, even though this is not the middle of the video. This is near the end.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a minute here to speak about our sponsors and ways you can support us. As this video has no sponsor, you get a couple of minutes of George and I talking about the best ways you can support what we do. The easiest way is to simply subscribe to either this channel or to the Chips and Cheese YouTube channel, and hit the notification bell so you're notified of our uploads right when they land. If you're a fan of written content, then we'll provide links describing to our corresponding publications. While me at more-more.com, I focus more on the business side of the industry. George and his team over at chipsandcheese.com do some hardcore microarchitecture testing. Now, another way you can support the channel is by in goodies. If you go directly to shop.techtechpotato.com, you can see our newest ranges of mugs, stickers, and t-shirts, including our new "This Keynote Could Have Been an Email" t-shirt and our "Yield a What Die Size" t-shirt. If you were here last week, we had Dom, video editor, and on the back end, he has one of our new this Keynote Could Have Been an Email t-shirts. It's great. We actually sold a few last week, so thank you all for participating in our proliferation of merchandise. Our merchandise supplier has multiple sourcing places around the world: US, Canada, UK, Europe, and Australia. So a lot of it is, or pretty much everything I've had so far has been really high quality. Because yes, I do have to buy my own merch to test that it works. Now, everything you buy at the shop, or every subscription, or every super chat you give us, does help me feed George at our next event together. But my day job is as a consultant for the tech industry. So if you are an investor or a fund looking for some analysis or advice, please do reach out to me in all the usual places.
And I'll add a little bit of addendum.
George does white papers now, so if you want a white paper, go speak to George.
No, I was gonna say, I mean, yes, but also, we may be or are actively looking for like sponsors similar to what Storage Review does, with sponsoring
videos or written.
But videos would also work.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did not sleep very well last night, so my brain is below par at this very moment.
This is why I have it scripted.
Yes. No, I was gonna add that little addendum of
so script is key.
Yeah, into stuff. Anyway, second topic, because my brain is fried.
Yes. While this is a topic that Justin Kinsey from SBT first posted about.
I thought it was CRN.
Justin Kinsey first posted about it on LinkedIn. SBT, it's actually a recruiting agency in the semiconductor space. However, the first online publication with quotes from everybody that matters, Justin had no quotes. That was just a statement. Was Dylan Martin over at CRN. AMD acquires the team behind AI chip startup Untether AI. So if you are familiar with the AI hardware startup scene, I follow about 100, 150 companies, and people have always asked me, when is consolidation going to happen? When are we going to see people dropping off? Because it's been 4 years now since I started that list, and we'd only had like a handful of acquisitions. 1 or 2 companies had dropped off. A couple of them were Chinese, got hit by the entity list. But aside from that, nothing really has happened. However, this year things are happening.
Yeah.
We have seen
arguably this month things have been happening.
Yeah, we have seen companies do SPACs. We have, I believe, Rain is now defunct as well.
Oh, Rain went up. I'm surprised.
I'm not, and there's a story behind that, maybe for a different time. But AMD has been on a hiring spree of late, and one of the things that they've picked up is the team behind Untether AI. Now, Esperanto might be in difficulty as well. They might have lost a lot of people. Again, another AI startup. So Untether were a compute in memory chip. They had their speed AI accelerator cards. They also presented at Art Chips at one point, I believe.
Yes, they did.
Yeah,
Art Chips
so
34, which is 2022.
Yeah, the same one that MediaTek presented. So yeah, AMD has confirmed Thursday, so yesterday, that it has acquired the employees behind Untether AI. So it hasn't acquired the company, hasn't acquired the IP, hasn't acquired the product, but has acquired the employees. So investors of Untether are kind of left in the dark. A developer of AI inference chips marketed as faster and more energy efficient than rivals for edge environments and enterprise data centers. AMD has entered into a strategic agreement to acquire a talented team of AI hardware and software engineers from Untether AI. Notice it's a talented team of, not the entire team, which begs the question. This transaction brings a world-class team of engineers to AMD focused on the AI compiler and kernel development, as well as enhancing digital and SoC design, verification, project integration. An AMD spokesman declined to disclose the financial details. A statement by Untether executive Bob Beechler said the startup will no longer be supplying or supporting its products as part of the transaction. So if you're an Untether AI customer, you will not get any more hardware. You will not get any more support for that hardware. You're on your own. While today marks the end of Untether AI's journey, so it's dead, we are proud of the pioneering research that underpinned our work in advancing state-of-the-art AI chip technology. We are grateful for the dedication of our team and support of our customers, partners, and investors. We look forward to contributions our world-class team will make with AMD. Now, AMD, this is alongside, has made several acquisitions of late over the past few years. These include companies like Mipsology, people like Nod.ai, which are essentially in charge of the ROCm bring up for new models. Anush, his last name is Rangavan or something similar. Yeah,
Rangavan.
If you has been recently arguing with Semi-Analysis on Twitter about where the state of their models. They recently acquired Silo.ai, where they paid $2 million ahead. They acquired the company, but it was really an acqui-hire.
Mm-hmm.
And then most recently, ZT Systems just finished. That was a $5 billion acquisition, but they then spun out the manufacturing part of ZT, which was worth about $4 billion. Again, they just wanted to hire the people because ZT has a history of being able to design AI infrastructure or rack scale. So what the Untether team brings to the table is essentially more, I want to say, competency. Even though the product didn't work, the team can still be good. Or the product didn't sell, the team can still be good. And the whole argument right now is, between Nvidia, AMD, and other people, who has enough engineers to supply the industry what it needs in terms of hardware, software, design. The rate and pace of AI right now is so high, it's hard to get the right people. Now, you could say, well, aren't they just doing hiring, ad hoc hiring? Yeah, that takes time. What's easier if you hire a team with synergy already. I fully expect that all the employees that had stock in Untether will be appropriately compensated, but the investors won't.
So I was going to say there were not yesterday, like a day before this, AMD acquired Bream, Bream, which is another
AI software company.
Thank you. And then literally, I think the day before or the 2 days before this announcement, AMD announced that they bought InnoSilicon.
No, InnoSemi.
Sorry, InnoSemi. InnoSilicon's a different company, excuse me. InnoSemi for co-packaged optics, excuse me. It was May 28th. So AMD's been on a buying spree in the past week, seemingly.
No, so these deals would have been made months in advance, right?
Yeah, I'm being a little bit sarcastic with
that. It's like what happens when I film a bunch of videos. I may film them at different times, but somehow you'll have a month of no video and then 5 videos in a week. They all just happen to line up all at the same time. So yeah, this is so Untether. Let's get rid of that actually. So yeah, here it says Justin Kinsey was the first to break it. Funnily enough, Chris Walker, who was Untether's CEO, apparently left like a couple of weeks ago. Dylan was telling me on Twitter that he'd actually interviewed Chris Walker in April for a story that he was working on. And now, obviously, that story is not relevant because Chris doesn't work there anymore and Untether's gone. And I said, you should just post the interview anyway and title it, "Here's what an AI CEO says right before he leaves his company."
Well, so I can... I'm not under NDA, but I will say that we were talking with Untether for cards, for like sample cards to test in April. And then we were hit with this 2 months later because they said, hey, wait until June for some software updates and then we'll send them. It's like, okay. And I was actually planning on sending an email. And, well, this just happened.
It's so outside chance you might be able to find cards on eBay. Let us know if you do, because we do collect random stuff. I mean, I met with Untether several times over the years, and the opinion I got is they were engineers, not marketers. They didn't know how to promote their hardware, software, or they had particular customers in mind, but the customers weren't generating enough revenue, and they didn't know how to restart the process to get excitement around their stuff. Or they just felt always reluctant to engage with people who weren't customers, right? I have a channel, you have a channel, that plenty of people have a channel where we could speak about the architecture of this stuff and speak about the cards and stuff that's really interesting. But at no point did they ever think, oh, we can reach out to these people, we can give them information, or they're engineers and it's like, no, I designed this. You know C, you know use, unless you give me lots of money, and then the company dies. It's sad. It's annoying. Unfortunately, this is a big part of why startups fail, because a lot of hardware startups are started up by hardware engineers, not people who know how to sell products. This is why, you could go to, if you're familiar with Grok, right? The chip itself is old. It's not that high performance. If you string enough together and don't care about the power, yes, it can be. But they turned around and sold how many chips? Over 1 million chips, because they hired a decent marketing team who knew how to get the name out, who knew how to get the CEO on the front of major publications, who knew how to get the CEO in front of the right people at the right events, at the right panels. They told the CEO, you need a physical trainer, you need to dress properly, you need to get your patter down flat. You might think, oh, well, this is smoke and mirrors. A good product still needs good marketing. Now, yes, a good marketing can shill a crappy product. I'm not saying that's not the case, but I'm saying even the best products in the world, if nobody knows about it, or it's only considered in hushed circles because that guy over there wants to hold it close to his chest, you're not going to hear anything about it. And anytime I really spoke to them, I always got a nicely, softly touch. Even though I arguably gave them, or individuals at least chatting to them at events, a good couple of hours of free consulting about the direction of their business. But I would be interested in at least picking one up just to have on the shelf.
Yep.
It's let's see. Discussion questions. AMD is on a buying spree currently. Do they have the cash to keep this up?
I put a data point in there, and the data point is they've nearly doubled their cash flow year over year.
Their free cash flow, that's just their reserves.
Free cash flow year over year. So yes, they probably do.
Yeah, it's at their last quarterly financials. They announced that they were increasing share buybacks by another $6 billion. This means that they will spend their money, buying shares on the open market in order to take them out of their share pool and increase the stock price. They didn't put a time frame on it. They'd already done, I think they announced $4 billion, of which they were already $2.5 billion in. They were doing something like 400 million a quarter. And you may think this is cynical. Well, they're buying back shares to take them out of the pool. That just raises the stock price, which means that the executives get better bonuses. Yes, it does return money to shareholders who want to sell their shares because that's always a thing. The big argument was, well, why don't they spend that money acquiring people and hiring people? Well, it turns out hiring and acquisition takes time. If you're just hiring on the open market, as every company does all the time, it's slow. If you're acquiring companies or you're acquiring teams like they did with Untether, it's still a slow process. AMD and Nvidia have roughly the same amount of employees, right? I think Nvidia is actually slightly ahead now. They went on a bit more of a hiring spree in the last 12 months. AMD's product portfolio is a lot wider than Nvidia's. So Nvidia has a lot of software engineers, and the battle, as always in this game, is how many software engineers can you get? Can you pay more than the other guy? Can you retain them? Can you give them sufficient bonuses? But it's more of a factor of how many people physically can you have, and can you onboard at any given time? So you're not going to let money just sit in your bank account losing value. So what do? You do share buybacks because the company is profitable and it's growing. This means later down the line, because you're concentrating the shares of the people that retain their share ownership, if there is a situation where you do need cash for something, for example, you need to do an acquisition and part of it is in stock, say Xilinx, you can then now issue more shares as a way to generate funds or issue more shares as a way to pay for an acquisition later down the line. If you'd like to learn more about this, I suggest you play a game called Capitalism 2, or the new one is Capitalism Plus.
Capitalism Lab, I believe.
Lab, yes. It's yeah, and as Dean says, it's not only about hiring the right people. You also got to have the right people who integrate with the culture, right? You can't you don't want people who are going to hoard IP. You want people who want to be collaborative, or want to engage, or are happy with the work from home conditions, or health benefits or whatever. If you increase your team size too quickly, too fast, you disrupt the chain. You also got to train them. Training takes time. Training takes money. So while AMD is making money, it's making hay while the sun shines, and part of that involved is stock buybacks. Again, the question will keep coming through. Why don't they hire more people? Why don't they acquire more companies? Why don't they fill this hole? When AMD first launched EPYC, Zen 1, Zen 2, EPYC 2, EPYC 3, the revenue was slowly increasing and flat. It wasn't until EPYC 3 where it actually shot off up in the hockey sticks style. But they weren't hiring software engineers at the rate they are today back then. What they were hiring what was field application engineers, FAEs. These are people that go work with customers and clients to optimize their survey design, to optimize the software, optimize the hardware. You need to support your supply chain, and you need FAEs to do that. AMD did not have enough FAEs to sustain their growth, or to support their growth, to accelerate their growth. And this is always the challenge for a growing company. So right now they're hiring kernel developers, system builders, software engineers, hardware engineers, SoC designers, validation, sign off, all the stuff that goes into building an AI ecosystem. And if that means ripping a team out of a startup without paying for the startup, then that's what they're doing. Because you remember we saw Centaur when Intel did like a reverse acquisition of Centaur or something.
Yeah, so
it was
it
120.
Was actually kind of similar to this. Though remember, Centaur was
owned
by VIA. Intel essentially acqui-hired the Centaur team, but left the IP with VIA, IP and licensing.
I believe they took one license because VIA had two technically.
I actually don't think that they took any, but regardless, I think VIA is still able to develop 64-bit x86 CPUs, regardless of if they took a license or not, or whatever however that works.
No, I was under the assumption that VIA had two.
Well, I think it functionally doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if you have one or two, but they at least still have one. Intel gave money to a team at VIA to spin itself out so they could be acquired.
Yes.
It was really weird, but
yeah,
it happens.
And to sort of speak to your comment, when AMD hit the dark times of 2012 to 2018, what you have to consider is at the time, if you had for GPUs, if you had good hardware and crappy software, you still had a product, or at least decent hardware and crappy software. You still had a product. In today's world, it's kind of reversed. It doesn't matter if your product is the best or not. If your software isn't there, you're in trouble. And I think that has taken AMD some time to learn.
Yeah.
Arguably way too much time, as you've heard my many rants on Rockham.
Yeah.
But if you've ever wondered why that was the case, that is potentially one of them. So
yeah, that's AMD. yeah, that was going to be our second topic today. We do have some tech boxers. We don't have tech shorts or tech quickies because we're men. We wear boxers. We just wanted a different name. Tech boxers. I only really want to cover one main thing here.
Okay.
I mean, we've got a few, but we have been going long. The first one, the only one really, is that the date for Qualcomm's Tech Summit has been announced. It is September 23 to September 25 in Maui, because they always run it in Hawaii. They are doing it within a few miles of Lahaina, which is the area that got burned down in the Hawaii wildfires a couple of years back. People do ask, why is Qualcomm doing it in Hawaii? Surely it would be better to help the relief effort. And the answer is, it's the Hawaiian citizens who are asking companies to come back. Because companies having events on Hawaii, whether you consider it a worthwhile event or not, I'll leave that up to whoever attends what. It's a big source of revenue, of GDP for Hawaii, the tourism industry. So what after the wildfires happened, obviously make sure everybody's safe, sort out the infrastructure. But then the first demand back was, we need our businesses back, because retail, all the things associated with tourism, all the things associated with all the hotels in that area. And on top of that, I've also booked a day at the cat sanctuary on Hawaii, one that I go to pretty much every year. I haven't actually been in 2 years. So I've already booked my flights to go. And it's going to be fun. I get to spend a whole day with 650 cats, and we're going to see if we can do some live streaming at that time. Obviously, because it's Hawaii time zone, it's really, not good for anyone in any part of the world. But if George is awake, then we'll get to chat. I'm doing it the day after the event, so perhaps we can run our tech routine there.
I mean, if I get an invite from Qualcomm, I would go.
And I mean, it would depend. You don't have a history with Qualcomm. That's the thing. Qualcomm.
Well, no, they know me. That's the thing.
The Tech Summit is a consumer products led. It's anyway. I mean, I go through analyst, obviously. The big thing we're expecting to hear about, I think, is next gen Orion in whatever form, whether that's notebook or smartphone. So this would be the X Elite Gen 2, but technically it will be 3rd gen Orion.
Yes.
Because 2nd gen Orion was in the 8 Elite, which went into smartphones. The first gen X Elite was called Hamoa. 2nd gen, I know Charlie from Semi. Oh, that's almost depressing. My autocomplete, instead of saying semi-accurate, went to semi-analysis.
Oh.
Oh. Okay, semi-accurate. Security certificate has gone. Okay, Glymer. Next gen chip is called Glymer, according to Charlie. It's also their 40th year anniversary this year, so there's going to be a big thing around that.
Are they going to announce server chips, or at least have something more about it?
So this is the big question, right? A few weeks ago, as part of the Everybody Has an Announcement with Humane in the Middle East about building infrastructure, Qualcomm announced they're going to be building a server CPU. And then 2 days later, they were announced as one of the lead partners for NVLink, chip-to-chip, NVLink Fusion. So that means we're going to get a Qualcomm server chip with NVLink Fusion. And we expect it's going to be full of Orion cores. Don't forget, this is when Nuvia was first acquired by Qualcomm almost like 5 years ago now, Nuvia's big goal was to build a server chip. But when they got acquired by Qualcomm, Qualcomm was like, no, we're going to go build a laptop chip first. If somebody wants a server chip later down the line, we'll do it. Well, it turns out now's the time. And I did ask Cristiano Amon at Computex, I said, is this enabling your team's vision going forward? Does this give your team, a donkey to pin the tail on? He misunderstood the question, unfortunately. He thought the question was about overworking his CPU team. But thing is, Qualcomm is usually very secretive about their projects. Everybody asks questions, they say nothing. The fact that they even gave out deep architecture disclosures of Orion and Adreno in Snapdragon X Elite was a massive step in a amazing direction that they should have been doing. And we praise them for it. However, we do have a good friend who is now back at Qualcomm, who did all of Intel's tech tours, which were very well received. And last time I spoke to him, it was clear he wanted to make architecture disclosures a key part of the messaging of Orion going forward. Whether we get any of that at the Tech Summit, I don't know. We don't know how far along this project is. Have they just started? Are they nearing tape out? It could be a case of tape out is next year, and then 27 is when they're going to be ready. We don't know. We don't know. I still have an interview with Gerard Williams from last year's Hot Chips. Unfortunately, due to the legal wranglings of Qualcomm, I've been asked to keep it on the back burner. I'm hoping that we get approval. It's still a very relevant interview.
So
that was partly me because I sat on it for like 2 months, and then the legal stuff started. I should have done it quicker. But.
So one very last thing I would like to cover is because you brought up ARM, and that is their complete renaming of their stack.
I had a discussion about this. They're not really renaming the stack.
Because that's what it sounds like.
It does. Do we have a link to ARM's?
I have a link here. I'll put it. I'll just DM this to you because it's gonna be faster.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. And then I'll share my screen. Yeah. Just so people know what you and I are talking about. Companies rename stuff, right? That's part of the way forward, right? It's you got to have the right names, and sometimes direction changes. ARM has come up with new names. So we already know about Neoverse for enterprise and infrastructure. NVIDIA Grace uses Neoverse. A bunch of stuff uses ARM Neoverse. Then we have ARM Neva for PC, Lumex for mobile, Xena for automotive, and Orbis for IoT. Mali will continue as the GPU brand, with IP referenced as components within the platforms. We are simplifying IP numbering by aligning it with platform generations and using names like Ultra, Premium, Pro, Nano, and Pico to show performance tiers.
Okay, Dell.
There's they've left out Max, so that could be a top.
Well, no, I'm waiting for the ARM Neoverse Ultra Pro Premium with V cores. I'm waiting for that.
In the Dell Max 16 Pro Premium Ultra.
So okay, real quick, Dell with the Dell Pro Max, they have the Dell Pro Max with GB10 and the Dell Pro Max with GB 200. I
Lovely.
hate it.
So I saw this reported as Cortex is dead.
Yes.
That is not the case.
Okay.
The point here is these 3 words. Each compute platform.
Oh, is this CSS stuff?
So ARM has a product line called CSS, Compute Subsystems. So this is why we introduced ARM Compute Subsystems. Now, ARM is an IP company. They sell CPUs, GPUs as IP and interconnect and a few other things, and you can put them together with some other stuff, and you do the physical design, and you get you go to TSMC and you get it built, whatever. In order to speed that process up, ARM created what it calls its CSS, its compute subsystem. So in the context of smartphone, this will come as a particular core configuration with a particular Mali GPU, with a particular networking, with a particular bunch of other, video scaling stuff, or, whatever ARM does or doesn't have. That's been pre-validated. And what you do is you add the final bits you need and you go tape it out. The idea being that the time to market is reduced by a year. Now, in some markets, that makes sense for sure. Because differentiation isn't that high, or on the other bits you can differentiate. Some markets it's a bit weird. ARM said at the last earnings they have 13 CSS customers, 6 in compute, as in smartphone, laptop, whatever, 6 in infrastructure, meaning switches, and networking, and then 1 in automotive. Thing is, in a CSS, this isn't a CSS, but it might, it could be considered configuration. Might have 2 X925 cores, 4 A720s, and 2 A520s. Right? So the CSS will have Cortex XA7 and A5 cores. Now, what they're saying is that CSS will be marketed as ARM Neva. And you might have the ARM Neva Ultra. You might have the ARM Neva Premium. You might have the ARM Neva Pico. The question where this becomes is if they're renaming Cortex X925, Cortex A720 to Cortex Generation Ultra. So if the Cortex X, what would be the X6 or the X926 turns into the Cortex 6 Ultra? Yeah. We don't know yet. However,
if they're doing that, then
it's because it says we are simplifying IP numbering and aligning it to platform generations. So there's still numbers there. ARM has not had its tech day yet this year. I can't tell you when it is, but I fully expect
it will
that
be sometime before December 31st.
Yes. I am invited. I have my travel almost sorted. I mean, it's a train for me, so that's okay. But I fully expect that the reasoning and the explainer for this will be given at that event. So you'll have to stay tuned for that. But yes, this is just the CSS naming, is these names. So you will still have an ARM Neoverse X1 or V1 core, but you'll have a Neoverse CSS. I don't think we're going to go, you'll have an ARM Neva X925 core. As far as I understand, it's still Cortex. Go search for ARM Core Stone. COR Stone, all one word.
Yeah, is that what's going bye-bye?
No, so Core Stone is new.
No, Core Stone is old. Yeah, Core Stone is very old.
So they recently announced a very new Core Stone design platform, along with their new Ethos U NPU, which we covered on a Poutine before.
I mean, that's over a year old, that press release. News April 9th, 2024.
When they announced this U85?
Yeah.
No, that date's wrong. I spoke to them about this. I'm sure I did at or maybe it was A320 I'm thinking of. Yeah. Either way, these are reference design platforms for IoT, Corestone. So Corestone is being renamed Orbis, I believe. It's that sort of thing.
So,
but Corestone has the Mali, the Cortex M85, the Mali C55, the brand new Ethos U85.
So I just pulled up a an article on a separate website about it from April 12th, 2024. So
yeah, I must have clicked on the wrong press release then or something. Yeah, but it's yeah, naming is sometimes tricky, especially when you do bulk end-to-end renaming of your full system. Name one renaming that you've liked in the last 10 years.
A rename that I've liked?
I can think of one.
Which one?
Xeon 6.
No.
Instead of
it's
Xeon...
It's better, but they flubbed it.
Well, instead of Xeon 6th gen scalable?
I would have preferred that.
No, you are in the minority.
Or at the very least, you shouldn't have your a almost different product line have nearly the same product SKU naming, but with -B at the end. Xeon 6 SoC has the brain work, please. Is like has so you can have the Intel Xeon 6 6776P.
Yes, that was just announced.
The Xeon 6 716PB and the Intel 7680E, and they're all different.
This is what you mean.
Yes. That -B means that it's part of the Xeon 6 SoC family, which uses a completely different I/O die from the Xeon 6 family, with different capabilities.
That's fine. It tells you it's in a different socket.
Naming scheme.
No, Xeon 6 as a whole is very widely liked. Xeon 5th gen scalable.
Okay, Xeon 6 as a full rename, I'm okay with.
You're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, though.
Maybe I am. Maybe I am.
Artos has a good point. The Radeon rename.
The Radeon AI R9700?
No, going instead of saying 9700, or instead of saying 9600, saying 9060.
Oh, that one. Yeah, okay. That one's fine.
To align with the industry.
That one didn't bother me. Zeus. It's still better than Azure's VM size name. Yes. Then again, that's
the less we mention the less we mention cloud-based VM naming, the better.
I mean, would you like some B1.S?
To be honest, that's a video. That would probably do really well.
Yes.
Understanding cloud service providers VM offering naming scheme. What exactly is
Actually, I just thought of a
G7B.
renaming scheme that I liked, and it was actually really slick. Samsung Galaxy S renaming from the 10 to the 20 was really slick because it aligned it with the years.
True.
So that was actually a really good rebrand, in my opinion.
They didn't put a 16 in there.
Yeah.
Like
They're
Nvidia did.
jumping from iOS 18 to 26 or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's fair. That worked. And with that, we have just gone 3 hours. There is some brief Q&A. What happened to RTX Pro retail in Europe? It's gone from all shops suddenly. Don't know. I wasn't looking, to be honest.
Joe, interested in seeing where the demand split for 1024 by 100 and 512 by 200?
It's not really a question.
The simple answer is one's for like AI, the 200 gig, and one's for like if you want, I don't know, 1,000 servers all connected to one switch via 100 gig.
It's one of the expensive things in data center is the switches and the networking. And if you can flatten your topology, then you save money. Yeah. So do we think we'll see AMD release L3 Infinity Cache stacked underneath future AMD GPUs with chiplet designs?
Just not on client.
Yeah. I shared with George, and you'll actually see this in the Tech to Potato Discord. Synopsys, AMD did a presentation with Synopsys about using 3D blocks with TSMC, as in how do they design the block level stuff for compute and memory when you come to chip design. And that was a good 30. Well, it's an hour talk that I sped up 2x. Hopefully that wasn't too jarring. I put on the on-screen subtitles.
At first I was like, why is this moving? Oh, he sped it up.
It's because I used a screen recording tool to record it, and I went off to use the bathroom or something, and I wanted it to be finished when I got back. Do we know anything about the new Intel Battle Matrix or dual GPU cards? When can we pre-order those? Because it's OEM based, it'll be by end of year.
Yeah,
as in it'll be.
Battle Matrix is late Q3 along with B50, and the dual GPU cards will only be found in Battle Matrix.
Unless you know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy. We don't know guys. That's the problem. We know weebs. And Dean asks, aren't those Qualcomm ARM legal wranglings over now, or is something still undecided? I think it's still an appeal.
So Qualcomm ARM appealed, but Qualcomm is now suing ARM in a separate lawsuit that's somewhat related. So no, to answer the question, no, the legal proceedings are not done.
Yeah. Unfortunately, none of my favorite legal YouTubers have covered it because it's too boring for their audiences. So, and in terms of the dual GPU cards, you mean Wendell will have one and no one will ever see one in person again? You know, given the amount of interest in the dual GPU cards and the amount of other companies I went to around Computex and said, when they asked, what was the most impressive thing you saw this show? And I went, that dual GPU. I fully expect other players to do them. And I fully expect Intel to be behind them in them doing them. So expect one maybe from ASRock at some point. And as much as I think, again, while we say OEM only, the amount of retailers that sell CPUs as OEM only stock, as in only 1 year warranty, not 3 year warranty, or whatever, it'll happen with these as well. The question is whether Intel makes enough chips, full stop, and the supply chain's there. But yeah, assuming that also the price is reasonable, What do we think? About 700 for the dual GPU or 1,000? Something like that. So, and with that, let's actually have it as a wrap. Because we've been on for 3 hours and food is a thing. And yeah, next week, I'm not sure if there'll be a tech routine because like I say, I'm not going to be necessarily on radar. Also, George is advancing AI. We wanted to get a guest on as well. And I don't think we can make the timings work next week, but Monday, the week after.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. And so with that, let's call it a wrap. Many thanks to all of you who have been here from start to finish for yet another.
Sorry, go ahead.
You're right there.
Yeah, no, I just realized that Monday's my mother's birthday. So that the 16th. So
Tuesday then.
Yeah.
So with that, let's call it a wrap. Many thanks of you all that have been here from start to finish for yet another one of our tech routines. We really appreciate your support and it helps us continue to do what we love to do. And we hope you like talking about chips as well. All of our links should be in the description below. If not, we'll add them. And you can find us on Twitter or on our Discord channels. Written content, as always, can be found at more-more.com and chipsandcheese.com. It's a goodbye from me, and it's a goodbye from him. And we'll catch you on the next one. If you like this content, there are multiple ways to support the channel. You can like and subscribe this video, and many thanks for doing so. There's also Patreon, which gives you access to our Discord. There's a merchandise store and a newsletter, links in the description. For all of you who do contribute, thank you. You are keeping me well fed.